Facebook.
Yep. Okay. So let's see if we're over on.
JR, how have you been?
There we are. We're live up on Facebook. Cool.
Been busy all day, all week. I just got back from moving my daughter to our new apartment. So.
Oh
wow. We've got some people chatting already. Hey everybody.
I don't see the. Oh, hang on. I guess I'll get it here. There we go. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Let me.
Yeah, I can see it now. How many people are watching this? Do we know?
I don't know yet. Let's see. 12 people. 12 people are watching us right now. So hello, everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to update the front page and put the embed code on the website real quick. Oh, I don't need the embed. I need the link. Let's see here.
Do you have the link, Mike? If not, I can send it to you.
Yeah, if you could send it to me, that'd be great.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Michael Bailey. Woo!
Yes.
It's there in the chat there. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That way you can see like if anyone has questions and so forth.
Yep. We monitor that live chat over on the right.
You missed me saying the great Michael Bailey is with us.
Oh, I did.
No, I'm talking to Bailey.
There's J.R. Fettinger.
Let me hit refresh here.
Is it in this? Oh, it's in this chat. Okay. As I learn how to use crap.
Okay, that didn't work.
What's going on, Brad? What are you trying to do?
Oh, I'm trying to add the YouTube live stream up on our main page. Let me hit refresh and see if that worked. No.
Has everyone seen
this window I've got says George Michael on it? Wow, I thought he was
dead. You gotta have faith.
Because you gotta have faith, the faith.
In this one case, JR, somebody else will be your father figure. I like that when you take me and Bailey and put them together, we make a gestalt being that is George Michael.
Yeah.
George Michaels.
That's funny.
You have to have faith.
Although I suspect you two are a little bit more masculine than the other one.
Don't speak ill of
as well as a little warmer right now.
Oh yeah. He is passed. That's sad. I like George Michael. All right. Let's see.
I was listening to some Wham earlier this week, as a matter of fact. On the it came up on the old Pandora. I don't know if you're familiar with this thing on the internet. The streamings.
JR streams music, don't you, JR?
Yeah, I get streaming. That's like putting a 33 and a third record on, right? That's what streaming is. It streams around the thing.
That'd be a negative.
Ah,
negative. Okay.
You're forgetting that when God said, "Let there be light," JR stepped to the left.
Yep. I remember you using that one before.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah,
you know, kind of like you.
Wow. For some reason, there's some strange bearded creature who keeps trying to. It's always amazing. It's always amazing people who can grow hair down but not up. It's
so funny. Are you okay, Zach? I don't have my window open. I'm just hearing you sigh a lot.
Well, I'm trying to get the computer to work right now. I'm on my phone.
Oh, so this is like a normal Crawlspace recording.
Holy cow! You do have a beard rocking. What happened in the time since we've been gone?
It's because I'm working for myself and I get to do whatever the bleep I want.
Yeah,
I'm using my proper Douglas filter. See.
Thank you.
So it's for the kiddies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am trying to get signed on, and
I'm still trying to put the YouTube thing up.
We'll see. Right now, I am.
Oh, there it is. YouTube responsive. Active widgets. Hold on.
I had to mute the YouTube thing because it's on a delay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just mute it and keep the comments up so I can
Yeah.
That's what I do. Okay, so let's go back here and see what's
19
going on.
watching now.
Impressive, everybody.
I don't know. I think at
George-
the most we hit like 40 something one time. What?
George, if you could do me a favor and put it on the front, on the Facebook that we're live with that
Yeah, I
link,
can do that.
I'm going to try to mess with the front page a little bit.
I'll put it on. Yeah, I'll put it on the.
Okay, let's see here.
How do we get the YouTube to come up? Just go to YouTube and.
Oh, let me give you the link, JR.
Okay.
Here we go. And see. Here in the.
Oh, is that it? YouTube.com watch.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Fight Club, December
Yep.
7th. Okay. All
Yep.
right. Click on that.
Okay, so as I mess with this homepage.
Ooh, ugly. Ah.
I did think for a few minutes to just do this while I was talking and just put the dog up to make it look like the dog's talking. But
Who the hell says Zach looks good with a beard?
I think Zach looks pretty. He's rocking it pretty good.
I think he looks good.
It's not like
I'm
mine
looking
that's
right
full
now.
of gray. So
I'm looking.
Okay, save.
I put it on Facebook and I tagged you, Bailey, which means that we'll draw in Bailey's fan base. So
Look at that. Yeah.
our viewership will increase exponentially.
none of them have ever
Can't-
come to see
can't
me
get it to work.
No, they haven't.
visually. So this my career might be. Hey, that's a great fan.
Well, I don't know what the problem is. Let's see. Let me.
Bailey
I don't know.
Kalish Warlord or no Werewolf X asks whatever happened with views from the long box.
Views is I've got 2 in the can, and I have to edit them. One has Big Honkin' Steve,
Oh man, yeah.
and the other has Mr. Andy Leyland and Shag on it to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Views.
No,
So-
nice.
Well, you tell Shag I said hello.
I will.
Is
I like
Zach
Shag.
still irredeemable?
He is. Oh yes, sir.
Yep.
But he's
Just
off
check.
co-running his own network right now. So
Yeah. Between the two of you, that's like 30% of the podcasts that exist today. Like you're involved with 30% of everything that goes on.
Now have proper.
I'm getting
Hi,
there,
everybody.
gang. Yo,
Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Annie, are you okay?
don't kill those youngling.
Well, we used Smooth Criminal for the Friday night fight with Tombstone,
Mhm.
and now
That
I've
was a
had
fun
it in
one.
my head all day.
I have 2, dude. I really have
It's a
2.
dark song.
well done.
It's
Hey,
not like
well
a
done,
happy, fun
Sponsor.
song.
Come here.
It's a dark, horrible song disguised as, "Hey, I can dance to this." Badly.
I was never really a big
I
fan
hadn't
of
seen that video in a long time.
You weren't a fan of what, Bailey?
the cover that came out about 10, 15 years ago.
There was a cover.
The Alien
Yeah, there
Farm
was-
version.
Yeah, the Alien Ant Farm. I couldn't remember the name of the group.
I could see like Marilyn Manson doing it, and it would probably be a more appropriate song.
Well, Manson did a really good cover of Sweet Dreams, so yeah, I can agree with that.
What is the
Wait, what? Heart
is it-
Sweet Dreams?
shift F5 to refresh your
No,
cache?
not Hearts. Eurythmics.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
Well, something's jacked. Can you guys
Why
hear me
are-
okay?
I can hear you
Okay.
fine.
What is the
Can you hear
thing
me?
to bypass the cache? Let me use a different browser.
What are you using? What browser are you using?
I just went to Edge to see if it... Nope.
Yeah, Edge. Microsoft constantly tells me that Edge is better.
Kalish Warlord
I'm sure it
says the last time he remembers hearing Bailey on the podcast, he was depressed at what the New 52 is doing to Superman. And he asked, I assume he's much happier with Rebirth?
Oh yes, much happier. Good
Yeah.
lord! It
I didn't
is.
want to answer for you.
It is. It's like a complete. It's like a complete 180 because DC. This is me being a little snarky. DC has decided it cares about Superman again. So they you've got Tomasi and Gleason working on Superman, which is kind of more of a modern take on the character and his world, and then you got Jurgens over on Action, just pulling in old fogies like me. So I mean, it's just, I think it's amazing. I'm kind of curious with Bendis now at DC if he's going to be working on the super characters, because all things being equal, I think he would write a pretty kick-ass Lois Lane series.
That's true.
Lois Lane hasn't had her own book since what, the 70s?
Yeah. Yes. He'll do the modern version of I Am Curious.
Yeah. What's the reaction been like on the DC side? I know I've seen a lot from the Marvel side, and it's mixed. It's like some people are like, no, we're losing such a great talent, and other people are like, thank Christ.
It's actually kind of the same with the DC people I know. A lot of people are excited, and some people are the opposite of that. The thing about Bendis is that I've read a good chunk of his early 2000s Marvel work, and most of it I enjoyed. I mean, not all of it, but he's got a really good handle on street level heroes. So
that Defenders book is really good. The current one, I like it. Have anybody else read it?
To the YouTube person that says I look good with a beard, thank you.
Oh God! To the one person that
I'm not seeing any of the comments on YouTube. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thanks, George. With friends like these, who needs enemies?
You're welcome.
Bendis will write Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. I think I'd be up for that.
I'm game for a Bendis Batman.
Y'all have fun with that.
No. It works. I got it to work. George,
what were you trying to get to work?
Here it is. On the front page. I've been messing with the front page while you guys been talking.
Oh, it's WordPress, dude. I swear.
I don't understand. Okay, hold on. Crawlspace YouTube page. Save.
If we could find something that had the similar features to WordPress that worked as good as WordPress on that regard, I think we would definitely be on board with changing it. I don't know what.
There's like Blogger and all that stuff, but okay.
I heard it's just as buggy.
Yeah.
So did everyone see Thor Ragnarok yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not yet.
Haley? Not yet.
No, I haven't gotten to see it yet, unfortunately.
No, the family saw it though, and they all liked it.
I liked it. I didn't love it.
The Bailey, you'll love the Hulk stuff. Seriously.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
I mean, it's just awesome. Him talking. I mean,
Hulk like raging fire.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Creepy, Zach.
That is.
and now you can see me do it live there, Bailey.
Okay, it's on the front page now. Sorry,
sure,
gang. I don't know why I was having such a hard time with that. Okay, let me get some.
I like that we have Bailey back after all this time, and then Bailey is already at a place where Zach is his nightmare fuel.
Nightmare fuel.
It didn't take long. It took 20 minutes.
What a word.
I've never been Bailey's nightmare fuel.
Holy cow, 25 viewers since I last looked at the number. Very good. Okay, are we ready? You obviously were. You were waiting on me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm ready to get educated by Bailey and
Whoa,
JR tonight.
Zach, your headroom is a lot. Can you tilt down just a little bit? A little bit more. Eyes in the upper. I feel like I'm teaching. Eyes in the upper third. There you go. Good.
Sorry. I'll buy me a new webcam soon.
How to frame the Marvel way.
I actually have that on DVD. The How to Draw the Marvel Way.
Okay, coming down, and we're doing Fight Club with Spidey versus Superman. Okay,
I'm shutting up then.
Coming down, 3, 2. Hey, Crawlspacers, welcome to our Fight Club. We've got quite the panel on this episode. Of course, we've got George. George, what's going on, sir?
A lot of D&D here lately.
I could make a joke. Anyway, I'm going on.
What? What joke can you make from that?
Never mind.
He likes the D.
We've also got Zach. You just heard Zach. What's going on, Zach?
Hey,
We've got a lot of
everybody,
people on Fight Club.
Yeah. It's because of our special guests.
Yes, our special guests.
It's really not because of George. It's because of the special guests.
We have them. We have JR. What's going on, JR?
Well, I passed a big threshold today. I finally officially moved one of my children out of the house.
How many miles away from the house, sir?
Well, only about 25, but
okay.
But she has her own job. She has her own car. She has her own apartment.
Yeah.
My work here is done.
You got one left, right?
Oh yeah. We'll see how long that takes.
Well, hopefully he has Wi-Fi so he can replace you on the podcast.
Being a father sounds so enriching and rewarding.
Yeah, you don't know what you're missing, George.
Yeah.
And our special guest, which we've alluded to, is Michael Bailey. What's going on, Mike?
Nothing much. Just here to talk about probably one of the biggest comics of the mid-'70s.
I would agree. The one he is talking about is Spider-Man versus Superman. We've never done a Fight Club that has a DC character in it. George?
This is our first crossover Fight Club.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Or Friday Night Fight, not Fight Club.
A little history, George. This one came out in a treasury size. Was this the first treasury? I think it was.
Yeah, I think this one and then one that followed up, they both were.
Yeah. Is that right, Mike?
I thought the first one... It's not the first Marvel treasury. That was the Spider-Man one.
Oh, the reprint one?
Yeah, and it's not... I don't think this is even technically the first DC Marvel crossover because they also had the Wizard of Oz treasury.
Oh, I remember that.
Came out, I think, in 75.
Yeah.
Or that because both of them own the rights to the comic book rights to the Wizard of Oz, so they published it together.
So, how are you guys reading this? I am reading from a 1991 trade. Did you have this one, Bailey?
I did not have it at the time. I picked it up a couple years ago, though.
Yeah. I actually have the original treasury. It's upstairs. I didn't want to pull it out and get it all fingerprinty. But, oh, JR, look at that. JR's got the actual copy on his webcam. Very nice, JR.
Yes, indeed. Purchased it from Rexall Drugs in Petersburg, Indiana.
Oh, when it was actually out on the stands.
When it was actually out, I went, and there it was. And I immediately ran back out to my mother and said, Mom, I got to have this. I got to have the $2.
Whoa.
Oh, I forget how I had to prostitute myself to get that $2. But anyway.
There was a lot of drugs that were consumed afterward.
Wow.
It's got this, big thing, the two heroes standing there side by side. And, it's got, a soliloquy from Stanley and Carmine Infantino. It's just,
JR, take a drag off of that old paper, man. Take a whiff. Yeah, smell it. Take it in, sir. Does that smell like pure 70s?
I need to put some Hendrix on. Oh.
Good Lord.
By the way, at first JR started off like Paul Harvey. and then he warped into he slowly warped into like Dennis Leary.
By the way, Bailey was talking about inside this crossover book, it actually has the cover of the Wizard of Oz that we were just talking about. So there you go. I guess
Bailey peaced out. He bailed.
Bailey is bailed. All right. Oh, he's waving.
He's going to do hand puppets to illustrate the story as we go.
Where'd the hand puppet go? Let's see the hand puppet one more time.
Now what's going to happen is...
Yes.
He'll break out his DC Select and his Marvel Legends, and then Superman shows up and he flies across the...
Oh my gosh!
Bailey's going to interpret in a variant of sign language.
Wait a minute,
no one understands.
Did you just change shirts? Wow. Bailey's actually got the actual copy too.
Yes,
did you change shirts?
Yes, I did because I realized that this one's full of holes and I am on camera and that looks bad.
This is the first wardrobe change we've ever had.
Well,
that's a lie.
Zach's done a couple.
I take that back.
Zach started putting on all the clothes from the closet.
Wow, I'm just incorrect.
The thing you miss, Bailey, about doing these live things is that every now and then Zach gets bored, like his ADD kicks in.
Oh, there it is, right there.
And he'll assault the closet and start putting on stuff like
there you go.
his granddad's robes and stuff, and
Hornacek says, "Holy shirt."
So does Zach start the podcast in the closet and then he comes out of the closet? Is that what happens?
You know,
is Kevin Spacey in there somewhere?
It's happened on the show as the thing. I mean, he's literally involved in the closet as a prop. So,
with friends like these, I don't need enemies.
Speaking, not that it's not fun to rag on Zach the entire time, but let's get back to Superman versus Spider-Man. Bailey, how much, or maybe and I've never bothered to research this. How big, just how big was this in the 70s? How much did it sell? Do we know?
I don't have sales records. I did have the opportunity a couple of years ago to interview Jerry Conway with Shag. And he was telling us that this was like a huge deal because that was right after he left Marvel for DC. Mm-hmm. So this was like one of the big projects. And, we're going to be talking about the credits, and Ross Andrew is listed as the penciler, and I forget who's listed as the inker, but it's pretty obvious through a lot of this that you got some Neil Adams in there, and you've got some Rich Buckler. I mean, there's other artists working on this, but yeah, it was a huge,
even though they're not mentioned.
Yeah, I think this was a many hands project.
Yeah,
just because just of how huge it was and to get it out on time. So
yeah, one thing I remember, or that I remembered having previously thought about when rereading this, was that Andrew's art looks a lot, or at least it seemed to me to look a lot like Kurt Swan's a little.
Yeah, Andrew had a similar style. Ross Andrew drew, if I'm remembering correctly, he drew some Superman in the 70s as well. Mm-hmm. So he was a really good choice for the artist on this first one. Now I am more of a fan of the artwork in the second one by John Buscema, but I mean it's hard to really argue that this isn't a classic in just about every sense of the word. Mm-hmm.
Well, the most important thing about this one and then the one that followed it up in like 81 or 82, they were just good stories.
Yes.
They were good stories. They had enough characters without it going contest of champions or batshit crazy, and it allowed them to keep the stories focused and tight. The only difference is that in the first one we have a great fight when the two first meet, but in the in Mary Marvel manner, because in DC they didn't do it. Back in the day in DC when two superheroes showed up, it was like, oh, we should go get a sandwich sometime. And Marvel, they just beat the crap out of one another
in a warehouse,
over
a misunderstanding.
So, it's like somebody took my sandwich. I have to hit you with a haymaker now, And so the second one really didn't have that kind of fight. Was there a separate universe like ever numbered on Marvel's side at least to distinguish what this one was? And do the other subsequent DC Marvel crossovers excluding Amalgam take place in it? Does anyone know?
There was a DC one. Let me pull up my research here. As
Hornacek says, someone give George a sandwich.
There was a crossover in the 90s while he's looking.
Oh, we had lots of crossovers. We had Batman Punisher. We had Batman Spider-Man, Spider-Man Batman. We had didn't Green Lantern team up with somebody?
Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer, yeah.
Yeah.
This was DC All Access #1.
Yeah. Oh, really? You're gonna mention that?
I liked that one. I was a fan of that.
That one had Ben Reilly in it, didn't it?
Bailey,
yeah, was what, 5 when it came out?
Bailey, yeah. This may shock you. Zach likes a lot of things that suck.
But in the official index of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Crossover Earth is listed as one of the Earths of the multiverse, where the Superman and Spider-Man, the Batman and Hulk one, the X-Men and the Teen Titans. So there was at least an official designation in DC on DC's side.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it always made me wonder because, like later when Spider-Man and Batman had their stuff in the late '90s or early 2000s, I don't remember now. No, it was mid '90s. Was that taking place in the same universe where Spider-Man had already met Superman?
No, well, when they did the DC versus Marvel, it was treated as kind of its own separate thing because Clark meets Ben Reilly, actually, not Peter Parker, and there is no reference to him ever meeting Peter Parker.
So really, there should have been, if they were going to have a Superman-based character meet Ben Reilly, it really probably should have been Bizarro. That's pretty much the equivalent there, isn't it?
I mean, Superboy and Ben Reilly did fight during DC versus Marvel, the crossover.
And they were joined together in Amalgam as the Spider-Boy.
Which was the first it ended up being sort of a tryout for Mike Ringo before he got on to Sensational Spider-Man.
Yep.
So JR, in '76, when you bought this thing, you'd already been retired for 10 years. It had been on your third marriage. What were your impressions of it as someone who was an elder statesman even back that far back?
Well, let's see here. I remember it was at the time I was having my hemorrhoids treated too, and so that I remember that very vividly. It was a burning, itching sensation that I couldn't quite dispense with. But enough of that.
I mean, were you one of the beta testers for Preparation H?
It was the Marvel Universe. It's Preparation X.
There we go.
I'm here all week. Yeah.
You'll see yourself out. It was one of those that was okay, but to be honest, I actually like the second one better because the second one, Clark and Peter interacted with each other's supporting characters. It kind of, this was kind of almost like this one, it was cool and everything. You had Doc Ock and Lex Luthor and Spider-Man and Superman, and you had the obligatory hero fight, and then, getting together and the supervillains were trying to destroy the world or whatever. But it just kind of felt like a big special effects laden thing that didn't have a lot of substance to it. That's not saying it wasn't fun or anything or cool, but it was okay. It just wasn't it was cotton candy. I thought the other one was a little more interesting, but it was what it was.
Overall, with the overall story and the direction it took, especially in the end when they took down the villains, Bailey, did it remind you in some ways of like World's Finest, that kind of thing?
A little bit. Actually, there's more moments in this that I think were eventually ripped off for Superman the movie than it. But it did feel. I will say that this one felt more like a DC book, and the second one that JR was talking about, that I agree with him, that I actually kind of prefer that one, felt more like a Marvel book, and I think that's because Jim Shooter wrote the second one, and Jerry Conway, who was at DC at this time, worked on this one. What I love about this one, though, is you have, everybody gets like equal screen time. I am pretty sure that on a like behind the scenes level, there was probably a lot of like almost, what was that Steve McQueen movie with Paul Newman where they had to like have the same amount of lines?
Was it? I was going to say Cool Hand Luke, but that's not right.
No, but anyways, it's like both heroes are treated equally.
Yeah.
One is not put over the other, and when they finally team up, it's more of a relief than anything else. Like, we had to get this fight out of the way, otherwise, I think fandom would have complained at the time. But they chose the two arch villains, and let me ask you this, you guys, as Spider-Man fans, because I've always kind of felt this way ever since I read this. This really cemented to me that Doc Ock was Spider-Man's arch enemy after the Green Goblin died, up until Venom came.
I would agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was the arch enemy when I started reading comics, because the Green Goblin had died years before I started reading. And it wasn't until the Hobgoblin came out that the Hobgoblin kind of gave Ock a run for his money as the number one.
Well, in the years after this, remember we had all those great stories, Brad, that you and I have covered a lot on here on Friday Night Fights. Involving Spidey versus Dr. Including the culmination of Spider-Man ripping Dr. Octopus's arms off.
And Spec, yeah.
So yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And we could. now here on Friday Night Fight, I mean, all we do is we focus on the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to give a little bit of context. So
Right.
I know some of you are itching to get to us, get to the hitting things part.
Get to this panel. That's the panel
Yeah.
they want.
but we've still got it.
Yeah.
We've got to lay the groundwork for that.
Right.
And explain the the timing.
That's chapter 2. We got to give a little setup to chapter 1.
Yeah, I mean, I was 4 years old when this book came out, so
What year was it? 76?
76. Yeah.
I was 1.
So
My dad graduated high school.
one of the things that I think gets me the most about this book, and it's a unique fight for us to pick here at the Crawlspace, because Spider-Man, when the two finally get together, it's a little like Spider-Man versus Thor.
Yeah.
And
He's out of his league.
He's way out of his league, and he's not just, ooh, I'm fighting Juggernaut, or ooh, I'm fighting Firelord, or ooh, hey, the X-Men showed up and acted like bitches, so I have to kick their asses. it's not like that. I mean, this is a whole different threat category.
Yeah.
Posed to Spider-Man, but at the same time, in true Spider-Man fashion, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care. Especially because of what he just saw. And to set this up, to set why they're fighting up, Peter just saw, I think it was at the airport, what looked like Superman showing up and using his heat ray vision to totally destroy Lois Lane and Mary Jane.
There's the panel right there. Look at that thing. Right? That's going to set him. That's setting him off.
And so Superman goes one way, Peter goes one way, Clark Kent goes another way, and then suddenly Superman and Spider-Man both show up at the same time, figuring one or the other has something to do with it. Why?
Yeah,
I'm not real clear. I can't remember why Peter thought Superman may be involved. Or why it was ever a good idea to hit him in the first place or go after him. But that's where we start. We start off with chapter 2 with the two, and we saw the art a little bit early. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, right there. There's the art. Look at that pretty. That's beautiful.
With the two of them, showing up at the same time, and rather than try to talk it out and maybe come to an agreement or discuss what's going on, no, Superman just goes ahead and tries to hit Spider-Man. When the two meet in the air. Now, Bailey, this is one thing I wanted to ask you. In the DC universe, is it still established that Superman is as fast as the Flash, or is that a Silver Age thing that we don't talk about anymore? And the Flash is faster now.
They really have just kind of conceded that the Flash is the fastest. Back during Rebirth, Flash Rebirth, there was an issue where Superman was involved, and he talks about how they used to race and Superman would beat him, and Barry said, "Clark, that was for charity."
Yeah.
So it's just like this
Nice.
It's just kind of conceit that no, that wasn't quite on the level, and I'm okay with that actually, because frankly, I want Superman to be one of the most powerful, but when you have one skill set, you want that person to be the best at that skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, back when that race happened, and I don't know what year that was, but when that race happened, wasn't that before all the Speed Force stuff even came about?
That was way before the Speed Force stuff. It was Superman 199 was the first race.
Yeah,
and they had several after that. In fact, they did a Treasury reprint of that in the later 70s, featuring all of their races together. And then there was the Wally West race in Adventures of Superman in 91, I believe. Might be 90. I'm kind of drunk right now, which isn't true. But no, it's just...
He's doing an impression of Zach.
But at this point, Superman was...
I knew that was coming.
Superman could travel, I forget what the exact, but it was faster than the speed of light. So this Superman was could extinguish a sun with his super breath. So
the reason it stuck out to me, and the reason I wanted to establish that, is because it's weird sometimes, because a lot of and it must be hard for writers and artists to convey this, because a lot of times, like if Superman's going fist to fist with someone, there's no way he should ever miss, given how fast he is. I mean, even in this case with Spider-Man, Spider-Man is perhaps the most agile being, or at least superhero in the Marvel universe. But at the same time, he can't dodge the speed of light or sound or whatever the hell, like however fast Superman moves.
Keep in mind that when Superman and Spider-Man start going at it, Spider-Man has been hit with the red sun radiation. So that's going to weaken Superman.
Okay.
Ah.
I mean, it's basically the analogy I had prepared is that George and I could fight, and if George had a gun and shot me in the shoulder, he's going to win. So you give Spider-Man a leg up on Superman. Yeah, he's going to last a lot longer in the fight, and it will weaken Superman because this was at the time period where if he was exposed even a little bit, he would lose. Okay, this is going to sound weird. He would lose his Kryptonian powers, but even on Krypton, Kryptonians were faster and stronger than humans. So even if he lost his powers under a red sun lamp, for example, which sounds silly, but usually works within the stories, he would still be stronger and faster than your average human.
Right. So when you guys get around, like on the 87 podcast that you're involved in, and when you guys show up at conventions and you have your Superman talk as you Superman fans are want to do, does everyone look at this period in time and just say, "Screw it, man! It's a Silver Age." It was all over the place.
Well, okay. One, to quote the great Bill Maxwell from the pilot episode of The Greatest American Hero, Superman fans can't agree on how to make Kool-Aid. So,
oh yeah,
when you have a group of Superman fans together, you may come to a consensus on like where to have lunch, but there are Silver Age fans, there are post-crisis fans, there are New 52 fans, there's George Reeves fans, there's Golden Age fans.
Where do you are you just all fan or what? Where do you lie?
I prefer the post-crisis, but I there isn't an era that I don't like. There are just eras I like less than others because every one of them has something to offer for the character.
Do you lay on all genres and periods of Superman like it's like you're a blanket, like you're a human blanket, and you're just
I mean, and I like to cover the different. Well, I am that large sometimes, but I'm working on it.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I meant like metaphorically, not literally.
Mike, do you wish Superman had what Spider-Man has, which is a 50-year ongoing story instead of a reboot? Do you wish it was one long story?
No, because frankly, I think Spider-Man could have done with like a reboot at one point or another in his publishing history. I mean, when you look at what's now, I haven't read a Spider-Man book since I was on this show, so we're talking
you haven't missed much.
You haven't missed a thing.
I've got one of my co-hosts on another show I do, Andy Leyland, is to Spider-Man what I am to Superman. He will follow that until the day he dies.
Same.
So I hear him. Like, he'll every once in a while go, well, that was a good issue. That wasn't a good issue. But overall, he's not enjoying it, overall.
So he's Brad, basically.
Yeah, but
a British version of Brad, right?
In thinking about all of the complaints we had, even before Brand New Day, when they tried to do Chapter 1, it seemed like because they never said, okay, this is a cold, hard, from the beginning reboot.
Yeah.
I think that's why you have all the continuity arguments you have today, because there are now over 50 years. Superman had the luxury of being rebooted
in the 80s.
In 86, and then again, and they tried to do it in 2004, and then they tried to do it again in 2009, and then they did the New 52, and then they've kind of gone back on that. But here's the weird thing about that, though, is that you will find in every reboot a previous generation that wants to burn DC to the ground because of it.
It's like that song by Mike and the Mechanics, The Living Years.
Yeah.
Every generation blames the one before.
On the YouTube chat, 227060. That's a heck of a handle. I'm sorry, but Spider-Man never should be rebooted. To be brutally honest, looking at DC, it's a testament how reboots are a short-term fix that creates long-term problems. What do you think of that, Mike?
I mean, that is one way to look at it, but the other way to look at it is the reason why the reboots don't work is because you have creators coming on years later and undoing them for whatever reason. It's not the reboot's fault that that Mark Waid spent his editing time on Secret Origins doing stealth like sabotage of the Superman reboot by having Superboy appear in the Legion stuff. So I mean, you're always going to have that because you're never going to. I mean, look at the New 52. Here's a good example. The New 52 was not a clean reboot of the DC universe because Batman and Green Lantern pretty much continued as they had been. So with all the talk of how brave they were for renumbering Detective in Action, they were hedging their bets on a financial level. But if you get people that are dedicated to it, I think a reboot could work rather well.
Well, the problem is right now. I mean, and after the last 10 years ago, I would have said no. I don't ever want the Marvel universe rebooted. After the last 10 years, there's been so much damage to this core universe now. I mean, like real substantial damage, especially to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That I there's a lot of times when I think about this. Usually when I'm driving to Whataburger, and I'll think about,
oh damn.
Yeah, and I'll think to myself, it's probably time, but you can't reboot it when you've got the same people who screwed it up there to begin with.
True.
Right.
If you're going to do a reboot, clean house. You get rid of everything. You change everybody.
The
you
light
change
bulbs.
teams across the board. Yes, you change the light bulbs in the damn building.
Oh, Alistair on the YouTube says, "What's a Whataburger?"
Oh.
Yeah, okay. I had a Whataburger when I visited Texas back in 1990, and I still think about it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's been 27 years, and that thing was amazing.
I guess I went to the one Whataburger in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, that's the thing.
It's Oklahoma.
It was awful. It was awful. I need one for
I still remember I still remember to this day what George said to Brad. I'm sorry, Oklahoma ruined your Whataburger.
Yeah. But let's.
I was wanting to jump in. I pulled out a copy of Marvel's The Untold Story, and there's a couple of things I wanted to mention about this particular crossover.
Hey, real quick before you do that, Zach, Bailey, have you read that book, by the way?
Yeah, I have. It was really good.
Okay. It's good.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
It's essential reading for any Marvel fan.
Bailey, I interviewed the author too. He's on past podcasts too.
Go ahead, Jack.
I was going to mention that. All right, so from page 164 of Sean Howe's Marvel's The Untold Story, the Mighty Marvel Convention was held on a Saturday through Monday, March 22nd through 24th, 1975 at the Hotel Commodore. Thrilling announcements made throughout the weekend suggest that Marvel might reach new audiences. A deluxe edition of Superman versus Spider-Man comic, co-published with DC, would be the first meeting between the two iconic characters, and the deal was being finalized at last for a live-action Spider-Man movie.
So there was talk after this came out that there was going to be a Spider-Man live-action?
Yes. And then later on, a couple pages later, Marvel and DC Superman versus Spider-Man crossover is going to be oversized 8 times the price of a regular comic, to reference what JR said earlier, and heavily promoted, a guaranteed blockbuster. For Jerry Conway and Ross Andrew, it was a wonderful payday. But for Lin Wein, it was the breaking point. At a meeting at Lee's office, sitting around the coffee table, Wein questioned Al Landry's decision to remove Andrew from his regular Amazing Spider-Man gig to work on the project. Spider-Man, after all, was my #1 title. I'm the editor-in-chief. Why didn't you discuss this with me first? It's because it's none of your bleeping business. And I bleep that out for you. So, needless to say, there was some behind-the-scenes drama as a result of this particular crossover. I just thought that was really interesting.
Creative types. That's,
That's true. But I thought we got to mention when it was announced, which was March of 1975.
I'm glad you brought that up, dude.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought to go back and remember that part of that book.
That was 1 month after I was born.
So let's get back to the fight real quick.
Yeah.
And Brad, hold up those next 2 pages, 49 and 50, since you've got the book there.
So Spider-Man
Okay.
dodges a punch.
The bottom of that one on the bottom right. Show that panel, and because I wanted to highlight this panel specifically on the art. Look at that.
This one.
Yeah, that one right there.
Here,
Look
let me click on myself so you can see it.
Look at
there you go.
Look at the dynamism of that pose with the way Superman is. You see his fist like he's rearing back. You know, he's got the arm out. That is beautiful. And then flip the page.
Okay.
We'll go to that iconic page that I think most Spider-Man Superman fans have seen, and most comic fans probably at this point.
That's a great looking panel right there. Look at that.
I mean, just look at the stunning quality of this art.
It's so pretty.
You know? I mean, it really is. I mean, even from stories from back then, you know, the art's quality. But here, it's like they really went all out.
Yeah.
Well, they took advantage of the Treasury format of making, you know, it's even bigger than, you know, even if this was like a normal size book, I don't think you would have had the power of that without the size of this page.
Yeah.
Because when DC versus Marvel versus DC, whatever you want to call it, happened, they did reprint these in like regular comic book size, and it just loses.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the power of the action at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
But it always struck me. I mean, this art, especially, I mean, just the detail on Superman's face there on page 50 with the kapow, and when Spider-Man hits him,
it's great.
I mean, just the amount of detail, and it's just so wonderful. It's just really wonderful artwork.
Yeah.
And it's also a point where Spider-Man should have broke his right arm. You know, if we're being honest. I mean, like not just break it, but like probably where like bone came out from like his, you know, comes out the bottom here.
Like Gordon Hayward level of ugliness being in terms of broken bones.
So to refresh the fight just a little bit, George, basically a fake Superman allegedly killed Lois and Mary Jane in front of Peter.
Clark and Peter just saw what looked like Superman using his heat vision to destroy Lois and Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, had their own separate fight before that moment, which was awesome.
Oh, yeah. What were they fighting about? I forget.
Well, Mary Jane thought that Lois Lane was scoping her mans.
Oh, yeah.
Even though Mary Jane and Peter were just friends, and the marriage came out of nowhere. But yeah, Mary Jane she's very territorial here. Yeah. And I like how my hands are up like I'm a wrestler, you know, like they're about to go at it. And
two canned hams.
And the two of them kind of have a catty little sparring match right before they disappear.
Yeah.
Which was very entertaining. I enjoyed that, you know, quite a lot, you know, and Mary Jane's like, you know, I forgot what Mary Jane said, but Lois is like, no, you know, Peter's kind of young for me, but whatever, you do you. I mean, it was nice.
Come to find out, it was Lex Luthor that was in the Superman outfit.
Yeah, and Lex and Dr. Octopus are watching this whole thing go down.
And Lex sprays or shoots Spider-Man with the red kryptonite beam.
No, red sun energy.
Red sun energy to make him a little stronger to go up against Superman. So that's where we are in the fight. Okay.
This is what's stopping Spider-Man from getting crippled.
Yeah.
With the way he's fighting Superman. Because they had to explain that some way. Otherwise, Superman puts himself, or Spider-Man puts himself in the hospital.
Yeah.
In this fight. And so on the next page, you know, after that, we've got a really great scene where Superman flies off after, and he's not, the punch didn't really hurt Superman. I love how the narration talks about it. He said, stunned more by the fact of the blow than its force.
Yeah.
You know, Superman's just not, unless it's like, you know, who was fighting Superman hand to hand back then? I guess it was Darkseid.
No, he and Darkseid really didn't throw down much in the 70s. You know, like him fighting Bizarro or him fighting one of the Kryptonian, you know, like the Phantom Zone villains or something like that. That would have been what would legitimately hurt him, but I think this is more like, you know, a guy who isn't that strong punching you in the face. I mean, you're going to feel it, but it's not going to be like something, when it's over, you're just like, okay, I think I moved because I was more shocked that happened more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And So I liked that moment a lot. Like, even though he kicks him, there were so many parts of this fight that I'm sitting there looking. I'm like, well, typically this is where Spider-Man should have broke a leg or whatever. But he does make reference later on to the fact that, like, even when he's hitting him, it's still hurting him.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman's really not used to someone coming at him like a spider monkey.
I'm going to attack you like a spider monkey.
You know,
never heard Spider-Man called a spider monkey before. It's pretty good.
And what's more is that while he's knocking Superman around, Superman is just kind of taking it, because Superman, I think, deep down knows I could end this in a minute if I wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like he's trying to assess the situation, seeing, you know, I think he's more worried about Spider-Man hurting himself than anything else at that point.
Well, there's that moment where Superman has finally had enough of his crap and is going to punch him dead in the face. And then right at the last minute, it's just like, holy crap, what am I doing? I'm going to kill this guy.
Yeah.
And at the last second, pulls the punch.
Yeah. And
I like this quote from Superman right here. It says, "Of all the stupid, stubborn clowns I've ever met, Spider-Man, you take the cake. Can't you get it into your skull? I've been trying to talk to you." Wow.
Well, he says, "I've been trying to talk to you." He swung at Spider-Man first. In fairness to Peter, Clark swung first.
But I kind of like that, though, actually, is because Superman has, like, the reputation of being the Boy Scout.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's current cinematic Superman, in which case that's kind of not an issue. But, you know, he's the character that doesn't, you know, that doesn't go in swinging, that does want to kind of try to chill things out first. So if you've gotten to the point, to quote George from, I forget what we were talking about, but it's basically like being mauled by Jesus. You know, what did you do that you're getting knocked around by the Prince of Peace? So was the quote that has stuck with me all these years.
That's pretty
good.
Yeah, and I forgot what we were talking about too, but yeah, I've used that term before, and people were like, "But Jesus was a pacifist," and I'm like, "Yeah." So imagine if Jesus freaks out on you, how bad that's going to be.
Piss him off,
right? Like, what line did you have to cross
God
to get your ass handed to you and get curb stomped by the Son of God? So anyway, we digress a little bit, but I like that when he. And to kind of build on your point, Bailey, because you talked about Superman's normally the Boy Scout. He just saw what he thought was Lois get zapped in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're both equally ticked.
Now Peter is prone to flying off the handle.
Yeah,
but you're right. Clark is not. But Clark just saw Lois conceivably get killed, and Peter just saw Mary Jane get conceivably killed. Mm-hmm. Neither one of them's really thinking clearly in this fight.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that we should mention, and thank you for bringing that up. But then, yeah, so Spider-Man pulls this, or Superman. God, this is I do this so often now. Spider-Man, Superman, but when he finally does hit Spider-Man, he has that moment. Great Krypton! What am I doing? I have to pull my punch. Yeah. And he hits Spider-Man. There's that great scene where Spider-Man flies off the roof. And then the next, like the double splash sequence where he goes through, you know, he gets knocked through a building, and then out the other side of the building, and then he's going to try to kick Superman, and then he kicks him, and then he just kind of falls off because presumably the red kryptonite had worn off. I think at that point,
yes,
or the red sun energy. Pardon me. But still, Spider-Man doesn't get no Fs are given, absolutely no Fs are given, and he just sits there trying to hammer down Superman, and Superman just stands there with his hands on his hips like, "Are you done yet?"
Yeah.
I love the expression on Superman's face here. It's just like, really? Okay, you're gonna do that now.
It reminded me of that scene, Bailey, in Death of the Family. Towards the end, remember at the UN when Batman showed up and Superman was telling him, "Look, this is the UN. I can't let you go after the Joker in here."
Yeah.
And Superman or Batman just hauled off and hit him, and then turned around and that great Jim Aparo art, and was like, like that.
Are you okay? I think I broke a couple knuckles.
What storyline was that from Batman?
That's
Death of the Family.
Oh, with Jason Todd dying.
That's when the Joker becomes the ambassador to Iran, from Iran.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To the UN, and so Batman shows up at the United Nations to basically kick some ass, and Superman stops him.
Well,
and then Batman just hauls off and hits him.
He didn't know that the Joker was the ambassador yet. He just had the Joker told him to meet him there, and Superman throughout the entire thing is just not saying why he's there, and Batman's getting progressively angrier to the point where, he tries to haul off and punch Superman in the face.
And again, you have a moment where Batman's not thinking clearly, even though he's Batman still. I mean, he held Jason Todd's, at the time, dead body in his hands. That's going to affect your thinking. I mean, you know. Anyway, so we get back to the fight. And it's amazing because you go from one page of Spider-Man literally just hitting dozens of times trying to hit Superman until his like hands are about to break.
Yeah. He says, "Oh boy, I broke my hands."
Yeah. And so he stops, and then they're pals.
Yeah. Look at that. Hey, buddy. Sorry. Well, let me shake that broken hand.
It's like the Three Amigos when they're at the movie studio, and Joe Mantegna is playing the studio head, and he's like, "You meet Geronimo or whatever Indian chief was. Okay, you meet Geronimo. You think he's a terrible guy? No, it was Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman was the one explaining it. It's like, you meet Geronimo. He's a terrible guy. You fight, and then by the end, you're all friends." And so that's what what is Zach doing? Zach's ADD kicks in every now and then, Bailey, and he has to like do little figures and puppets and stuff and toys. So so yeah, by the end of the fight, they're all friends, and Spider-Man's holding his hands. Now that's their fight, which is what we covered because we wanted to cover Spider-Man versus Superman. I mean, later on at the end, they kind of crisscross with their villains.
Yeah.
Which it's fun because I definitely don't think Otto was ready to get a face full of Superman. Definitely, you know, Otto's like, I am clearly the loser in all of this. Yeah. You know? But it's a great story and it's a great issue. But this fight, I think it speaks to the strengths of both characters.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to Superman's calm and reason, even though it's shaken by seeing Lois get killed, and he's, you know, at the start he's not thinking clearly, but at the same time he's also fighting with a sense of if I could easily kill this guy,
mm-hmm.
and I have to be careful because I could do the wrong thing and someone could die. And then Spider-Man, on the other hand, is just so angsty and filled with rage and pissed off, and he just needs to take it out on something, and he takes it out on the one person that he can take it out on safely. Well, I say safely without, not so much to him and his hands, but, you know, without too much collateral damage. There's some collateral damage in this. I mean, they tore some buildings up.
Yeah.
But not like, you know, it's not like Superman versus Doomsday and like, you know, half a city is broken apart and destroyed. Yeah. Which is funny because the next issue that we're going to cover when we cover Peter Parker, Spider-Man number 14, when Spider-Man fights the Hulk, it's a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of the same kind of setup where he's beating on one person just because he needs to take out. There's something in him that needs to get it out like that. That needs to get it out physically, which makes Peter kind of a dick.
So
it makes you wonder if like Peter just spends all his time just like as Peter, you know, just holding back and not confronting things and then when he's Spider-Man, he's got a mask on. He's like, you know what? F it. I'm going to beat everything's ass.
Well, isn't that kind of the whole point of him putting on the mask in the first place? Was, you know, before Uncle Ben died, he was basically like, F the world, I'm going to get what's mine.
I'm going to get paid. Yeah.
Yeah. The world crapped on him so much that, you know, this was how he was going to get it. And every time they do those what if type stories where, you know, what if Aunt May died instead of Uncle Ben and all that, Peter just ends up being a jackass.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a, you know, I'm not sitting here talking smack about Spider-Man because I like the character and I think deep down he is a hero. But there is a part of Peter Parker that will always be the nerdy kid that got shoved into a locker.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to come out now. And Superman, even though, you know, Clark Kent is mild-mannered and different iterations have treated his growing up through varying degrees. There was when in the Superboy series, Clark was always getting picked on. There's this great issue in '83 where Clark finally just had enough one day and knocked this guy on his ass after he was talking smack about Ma Kent. But it's just like one of those things where at the end of the day, Superman is, especially at this point, the authority figure. He is the calmed reason one. He's the guy everyone looks to because he could crack the world in half, but he doesn't. He uses his... This is when people go, I don't understand Superman. What they're basically saying is, I have no empathy for other human beings, and I'd be a jackass if I had these powers. That's what they're... No, I'm not even kidding. When people are like, well, I don't understand why you would do that. It's just like, well, then you don't understand selflessness almost.
Real quick, somebody in chat just posted this. He says, I disagree with George and Michael. Spider-Man is a hero and doesn't just use pent-up anger until he can beat people up. We're not saying he's not a hero.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Absolutely not saying he's not a hero. I mean, listen to the 47,000 podcast episodes we've been involved with this character. You know, we're not saying that he's not a hero. We're just saying he does have some anger issues, and it's tied into his origin, as Bailey points out, very, very adeptly, very wisely.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where how many times in an issue of Spider-Man did he go, I'm sick of the world, you know, kicking me around?
Yeah.
I'm tired of this.
That's like that's like twice a month for him.
and honestly, the most traumatic of his life, prior to Uncle Ben dying, was probably he was traumatized by the fact that he was just notoriously and mercilessly just systematically picked on as a child.
So every villain, in a way, has Flash Thompson to thank.
Yeah,
for every beatdown Spider-Man's ever delivered to them.
You know what the funny thing is? The funny thing is, though, is when you read those original Lee Ditko issues, after he gets the powers, Flash Thompson is a bully, but he's not a problem anymore in the terms of, because Peter reminds me of Daniel from the Karate Kid. I mean, okay, yeah, those guys kept kicking his ass, but at the same time, he kept poking that bear. Now, they were going to kill him before Mr. Miyagi saved him. But at the same time, there is that kind of part of his personality where he'd mouth off to Flash. So I always got that Flash was a bully, but not in the I'm going to take your lunch money sense.
It stopped being that way, especially really after the boxing match.
Oh yeah, the boxing match. I remember that.
You know, I mean, there was, I think, a little microcosm of respect by Flash that Peter could hold his own in a boxing ring with Flash. And Flash was still an a-hole. He was still an a-hole even when he went to Vietnam. I mean,
or
the
Afghanistan.
War. Yeah. Or the war. You know, when he would come back even during the Lee Romita era, I mean, he still was a bit of a douche. But, you know, he wasn't as... He was a douche, but he still kind of liked Peter deep down.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, JR?
Hello, JR.
Oh. No, I mean, I was thinking about something else, and then I'm trying to give that the consideration that it's worth.
Which is none.
I don't know that he liked Peter for a while, but he respected him. I think like any, you know, people who are in conflict, there's part of them that wishes that they were more like the other. And I don't know that, you know, he liked Peter so much as part of him said, boy, I wish I was a little more like him. And then when you're thinking that, though, you automatically get into some kind of it makes you self-loathing. You know, and then you take that, and then, you know, you go back to that person and you try to humiliate them again because you realize that they're better than you in some respects, and that makes you mad. So then you try to bring them down again. So really, they didn't start becoming friends until I think about the mind worm thing. When
they became roommates.
When Harry blew Peter's apartment up, and Flash was the only one who would take him in.
Yeah.
And, you know, they finally just sat and did nothing. You know, they talked the night away and found out that, well, you know, golly, you know, maybe so-and-so's not such a bad person after all. So really, they had never really, until that moment, had never really sat down and talked to each other like two human beings. So, it was a long process, but
I think you also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jay.
No, I was just about to say, and probably what I said was rambling and made no sense at all.
No, it did.
But I think also part of it was Liz Allen was starting to show interest in Peter. And that's going to create some conflict because suddenly the girl he kind of likes the guy that he hates. So that's going to make you hate that guy even more.
Yeah.
So
George, the fight.
Oh,
winner.
Yeah, we have every time we do a fight, we have to give a decision.
Yeah, the decision.
This time, I'm going. You know what? Let's hold it to a vote here, since there's 5 of us, and so I'm going to give my own take on it, and I'm going to give my vote. I'm going to call it a draw because both of them walked away buddies. But it's a draw because Superman decided it could be a draw. So I'm gonna say draw. Bailey, what say you?
Similarly, I will say it's a TKO for Superman. He didn't actually knock him out, but it was his decision to end the fight.
How does that work in boxing if one guy walks away?
The referee decides that you can't go on.
Yeah.
So who do they make the winner?
It's like you didn't get knocked out and you're still technically.
Well, you got to keep in mind, Brad, with if it goes the distance and goes all of the rounds that have been assigned to the fight, there's a point system.
Okay.
That there's 3 judges sitting off, and every time you make a solid contact, you get a point. So you could sit there.
Well, well, Spider-Man then would win because he made a whole bunch of contacts on Superman. He hammered his chest like nobody's business.
Until he couldn't do it anymore because each time he did it,
because he broke his hands.
It was hurting him more than the guy he was punching.
Yeah, that's true.
I want Mills Lane to come in and.
Yeah. All right, so we have 1 vote for draw. We have 1 vote for Spider-Man. We have.
Did I vote for Spider? I guess I don't know.
You just said Spider-Man. Spider-Man won on points.
I was just if we go by points, Spider-Man did win technically because he landed more punches.
Is that your decision?
I'm on a Spider-Man show. Why not?
Okay. So we have the Superman expert saying Superman won. We have the Spider-Man expert saying Spider-Man won. Zach, okay. What do you say? We go to a non-expert, and Zach, what do you say?
Zach is muted.
Speaking of non-expert, we'll go to JR. JR, JR is an actual expert. So JR, what do you say since Zach dropped the ball?
Muted.
Oh, to me, I mean, there was as much fun as it was, and back and forth, and yes, Spidey landed punches. I'd still have to give the fight to Superman. I mean,
even JR is giving.
Well, come on, no. like Mr. Bailey said. I mean, the only reason that the fight ended the way it did was because Superman chose to. I mean, Superman was ultimately the one in control at the end.
But I was just going by what Bailey said with the point system. If we go by the point.
I'm about to dovetail on that, Brad, and I'll kind of.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'll let JR finish first.
No, but that's what I was about to say. I mean, ultimately, at the very end, Superman is actually the one in control. So to me, that makes him the winner.
All right. So getting back to what Bailey was saying about the points, if you're going on a boxing analogy, certain punches that get landed have more weight as punches. A good example of a technical knockout was the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight, where McGregor, he is still technically standing. He never hit the canvas, but the referee looked into McGregor's eyes and said that, hey, he can't fight anymore. He can't continue to fight in peak condition. He was gassed by the end of that fight, so they called the fight a TKO. So in that regard, Spider-Man loses this fight because really there's a physical aspect to it, and Spider-Man physically couldn't have been able to continue fighting Superman. He broken his hands. The amount of punches, yes, that Spider-Man landed would have won him a couple of rounds maybe, but the overall fight went to Superman simply because Superman was still standing and basically was saying, son, quit. All right.
Yeah, are you finished yet? Are you done?
Are you done yet? And that
if we're going by the analogy, Spider-Man took an illegal drug called kryptonite, whatever that is, that red sun thing.
Yeah, but he didn't know that. I mean, it's not like he got juiced up before the fight.
You're using every athlete's go-to excuse. Well, it was in my supplements, but
it was just a weight gainer, I swear. Yeah. Even though it's made of some kind of powdered deer horn and a fish paralyzer.
Exactly. I got it from GNC.
Hornacek says Spidey was juicing. Yeah.
Enigma points out that this is kind of irrelevant because they weren't actually boxing.
Yeah.
Keep applying boxing terms, but since we asked for a decision, it kind of
Fight Club Friday Night Fights plays off of the
it does. So I have to say, I mean, we have three out of the two here saying that Superman wins. So I think decision here, Superman.
All right.
And here's the thing. I mean, there's no shame in this. Number one,
no, there's not.
Everyone won from this. Superman won.
Marvel, DC won by
Marvel,
sales.
DC won. The fans of both characters won. Everybody won except for
Jerry Conway made a ton of money.
Everyone won except for the people in the story who had buildings that got torn the F up in the process of this fight.
I like what Where X Wolf said. Superman came into a Spidey Friday Night Fight and took back home a win.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, like, we talk about Spider-Man, especially Spider-Man in the 80s, how he's able to take down superior threats. It is quite possible for a threat to be too superior for Spider-Man to overcome. Like, Spider-Man's not going to kick the crap out of Galactus. Superman could.
I mean, think about it this way. When Superman met Juggernaut in DC versus Marvel, he knocked him the F out in the first shot. I mean, DC characters overall, on average, are usually more powerful on a power level than Marvel characters. And that's one of the things that, when people want to argue about the two companies, they don't like DC because the characters are too powerful. So when you're going with that, and sticking to it, then obviously Superman being the most powerful is not going to lose against the guy that is under Thor.
Hey, real quick, Bailey. Enigma asks a question in the chat. How did the Superman Muhammad Ali book work, and who won that fight?
Actually, Muhammad Ali knocked him out. It was a pretty brutal fight. They are taken off planet.
Yeah.
And Superman and Superman is basically boxes Muhammad Ali and then is trained in boxing by Muhammad Ali. But Muhammad Ali, since they were on equal footing, pretty much trounced him. It was a fun fight.
There's an important programming note, real quick, because I had mentioned in the fight that we're going to cover next, and I was in error because we had decided not to pick that fight. We had, according to Brad, we decided to pick Amazing Spider-Man 14 instead. I think, Bailey, that's what you had said at first.
Yeah. We can talk about the other Hulk one some other time.
Okay, but it's just that there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
In that Peter Parker Spider-Man 14 fight, and that Spider-Man was he needed something to take out a lot of negative energy on, and it just happened to be the Hulk, and it was very, very good story.
So before we get to the next episode, final decision, George, for this fight.
Well, I think the panel already decided it's Superman.
It's Superman.
I mean,
all right.
It has to be.
Okay, well, that'll be a clean break from...
Listen to Bailey. Bailey's like, yeah. Bailey's throwing up gang signs now. He's like doing...
Give him the S or something.
All Bailey shootings be drive-bys.
Oh, my goodness. I just want a clean break for the edit for the decision. Okay.
So Bailey, you didn't like All Access?
I didn't mind the concept, but when you're at the when you're getting to the bottom of the amalgam barrel by mixing up Thor and Electric Blue Superman, I think at that point you have.
Well, that was the second miniseries. I was talking about the first one.
Yeah, I mean, Access was one of those very 90s concepts, and it was kind of cool that they tried to extend the whole DC Marvel crossover stuff beyond the miniseries and the amalgam stuff that happened after it. I'm just not a huge fan of it. But to be fair, I haven't read it since like 1997.
Was that the character's name? Access.
Yes.
Yeah, Access
Okay.
was his name.
Has he ever been mentioned since that book?
No.
No,
Okay.
not since. Okay, so they had two miniseries. One that was
What
primarily
am I
produced
hearing?
by DC.
Oh, go ahead.
One that was primarily produced by DC, which was DC Marvel All Access.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the one that Spider-Man guest starred in. And then later on, they did one that was primarily produced by Marvel called Unlimited Access.
I remember that.
That
Was
Spider-Man.
JLA Avengers the last Marvel crossover, DC crossover?
Yeah,
'Cause that was like in
at
the
that
early
point-
2000s.
Yes.
Yeah, because Quesada at that point called a moratorium on them because that was when Quesada and Jemas were all about calling them AOL comics and stuff like that. But no one's going to walk away from the JLA Avengers cash cow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
We're not going to get something like that again until we have different people in charge at Marvel.
yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't see Axel Alonso wanting to do anything.
Real
Good.
quick before we start talking on the next show, I'd forgotten how attractive the Hulk Batman fight was.
Well, it's Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
And,
I mean,
exactly, and I remember you talking about how that's one of your favorites, and he did a lot. He did like the what do they call those for DC? It's the Marvel Universe biographies. Like
he did all the merchandising art.
Merchandising,
for the
yes.
early '80s.
And I remember looking at that Hulk, and I'm like, that's a Hulk I've never seen when I was a kid. Like how cool that Hulk looked. I mean, he really did a great job drawing the Hulk.
Yeah, Lopez was just the master. I mean, he almost sells Batman kicking the Hulk in the stomach.
Yeah, look at that panel right there. That's so cool. I think of that artist because when I go pick up my daughter, that's the year is a superhero themed year, and right when I walk into the door, it's Garcia's artwork of Superman and Batman right on a school door, and I always think Bailey loves that guy, and I've forgotten he drew the Hulk Batman fight, which is so cool looking.
If he would have been able to keep a consistent book, because he just was a slow artist, so he didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't like Kurt Swan, who was going to kick out a monthly book year after year. But if he could have been able to, I think he would have been the primary Superman artist of the '70s.
Is he still with us, or what was?
Oh yeah, he's still alive. Yeah, he's still doing convention appearances. He's on Facebook.
Is he on a book or doing? What is he doing these days?
No, he's not on a regular project, but he did come back. And I think I'm right about this. I think he did come back to draw a Harley Quinn for the merchandising art.
Oh, that would be cool.
Because there's a lot. When Paul Levitz left DC, the people in charge finally opened up all of DC's artwork for merchandising, which is why you've gotten some of the cool stuff you've gotten in the past couple of years. But they also opened up that merchandising artwork again. So when you go into like Books A Million or Barnes and Noble and you see like the merchandise, you're going to see a lot of Jose Luis Garcia Lopez because if I'm correct, Mike Zeck is the one that basically vectored all of that artwork so that they could put it on anything at any size.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I just
looked at that last
quick toast to Mike Zeck.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Look at that last panel. Doesn't that just give you the Lonely Man theme?
Look at the I mean, just the angles and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such compelling storytelling. I mean, even with the art, but which we all know doesn't drive stories. But as we've talked about art repeatedly tonight, about how great the artwork was. But it reminds me so much, and it goes back. We mentioned this time and time again, Brad. That how to draw comics the Marvel way. They talk about the power of perspective and how just the way you frame something, will completely change how people see it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
years ago, Jimmy Palmiotti was on a comic book documentary that Discovery Channel or something did. It was like in the late 90s. And he was the one that explained Kirby to me. And all he did was this to the camera. I mean, just that change completely warps your perception of what's on the page.
Yeah. It makes it that more, I hesitate to say real, but it increases.
It's in your face.
Yeah, it increases the intensity.
Yeah.
By the way, I always do this like I have to kind of pan my camera down. Like a lot of times, this is weird. I do this when I get out of the shower, but like I have because I have like a full mirror in my bathroom, and so I'll have the towel.
Wait, where are we going?
Hang on, stop. I'll dry off. I have the towel and everything, and then like for some reason I always do a Kirby pose in the mirror when I'm in my towel and everything. And I'm always like I'm a wrestler from like the late 50s or something. You know, like
you're like gorgeous George. You're a Gorilla Monsoon.
Like Hart back then, he was like, you know.
Like I just figured you were just standing up like Arnie does when he comes out of the time warp in the Terminator.
You really
steam coming off of you.
This mental image is horrible.
Wow. Alistair, there you go. By the way, Enigma wants to know, who do you think won the Hulk Batman fight?
Oh, the Batman by a safety. I mean,
Batman cheated, but he won.
Yeah, I mean,
Batman.
My favorite though was the Hulk Superman fight from the second Superman Spider-Man one, where the Hulk is just wailing on Superman, and Superman's just like, okay, any minute now, any minute, yeah, this. Okay, yeah, just keep hitting me, big boy.
I don't. Now that one I have more of a problem with.
I don't.
You don't think the Hulk can take out? Not Superman.
This is what we're still talking pre-crisis Superman.
Yeah.
No.
Nothing can touch that Superman.
Superman post-crisis, like Man of Steel, burn Superman. Yeah, but not this one. No, this one could like lift planets if he wanted to.
You know, if it's not Spider-Man related, but that Roger Stern, Mike Barron, Hulk Superman special from the late 90s was amazing. I love that one.
I remember that one. Man. Okay.
Do I need to move my ironing board there, Bailey?
I just at one point I was looking, I was like, "There's an ironing board back there, and that is now distracting."
Oh, I have wondered what that is. I thought it was like the blinds from a window.
No, it's because I because of what I do for a living now. I have to iron my shirts every day.
Yeah, dude, those old ladies like their gigolos look impressed.
No, buy you iron free dress shirts. It's what I buy all the time.
I know. I do take a little bit of joy in ironing my shirts, and there's one of our mutual friends who did like some interviews recently, and he had it all wrinkled, and I was like trying to be like, "What are you doing?" And then
we still need to refocus. We're talking about me taking showers, Zach ironing.
Yeah. Okay, let's start. I
change shirts.
Yeah.
This is the first show of 2018, so we'll.
Oh.
Okay. So here we go. Oh my gosh! Is that
no, it's not. That's not the first show of 2018. We're doing well. Okay, are you counting the one that just came out as November's Friday Night Fight?
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it November?
Yeah,
it was supposed to be October.
I know, but
do two.
No, we're not. Why do that? It's fine. Okay, here we go. You ready, George?
Yeah. If by ready you mean not at all, since I prepped for the other thing.
You know this one. It's a classic.
Yeah, and really, it's a Ditko thing, so the fight scenes are kind of anemic. I'm not going to lie to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I am not a fan of Ditko's Hulk at all, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. All right, coming in 3, 2.
This is what happens when you change stuff at the last minute, Douglas. Anyway.
Oh my. I didn't. Okay, coming down 3, 2. Hey, Crawlspacers, welcome to our first fight of 2018. Let's introduce, we've got in the panel, George, the Friday Night Fights. We've got some more guests this year.
Yeah. We, it's commonplace to see JR since we do these when we also do Spider Histories.
Yeah.
It is.
What's going on, JR?
I'm just trying to get over my New Year's Eve hangover. Yeah, I woke up and realized that I was I was still married and still had children, and it's like, and I wanted to go to sleep for another year.
Wow. And we also have Zach on the line. What's going on, Zach?
You know, since we last did a Friday Night Fight last year, I turned 30 in the interim.
Oh, wow.
And,
my heart breaks for you.
Yeah, and one, I feel old, the dirty 30. But two, good old Stan Lee. Good old Stan Lee turned 96.
You and Stan Lee share a birthday. What's the date again? It's December
28th.
There you go.
December 28th.
And since we're talking about the Hulk in this fight, we have Michael Bailey on the line. What's going on, Mike?
Hey guys, how you doing?
that is a great looking. For the YouTube viewers, Bob Hall, I think.
Bob Larkin.
Bob Larkin, that's right.
Yeah, he drew a lot of the. He did a lot of the painted covers for the Hulk magazine.
I still have that poster. I love. That's one of the best Hulk images of all time.
It is one of the most iconic. I will agree with that completely.
Yeah. So we thought, George, right? Since we've got the biggest Goblin fan on the line and one of the biggest Hulk fans on the line with Mr. Bailey, why not combine them for the first appearance, which is Amazing Spider-Man number 14, Volume 1.
Well, we had Bailey for the other night. You know, we'd already paid it
back in December,
and yeah, so it just makes sense. And I mean, JR, who I had flirted with maybe banning from Friday Night Fight altogether, after for not staying in his lane. That one time,
I thought this was another invitation for me to take over the show. I mean,
I'm fully expecting you to.
Bailey, that's what happened last time when we talked about the Goblin. JR just went all over.
Yeah, JR covered the entire damn issue. Like, he started talking and then didn't stop for like half an hour. And then he said, but I'm rambling, so I'll let George talk about the fight. And we're like, dude, you just covered everything.
The show's over. I mean,
it was hijacked into a Spider History impromptu.
Yeah.
It was very crazy.
So there's
I've decided, out of the goodness of my own heart, my probably enlarged heart, to let JR,
just like the Grinch.
Resizes too big down there in Texas.
to let JR back into our good graces on Friday Night Fight, and then we pick Zach up like a hobo along the way.
So George, there's several fights that Spider-Man has in this issue.
Yeah, Spider-Man fights. He fights the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
He fights the Enforcers.
Yep.
And he fights very, very briefly. He fights the Hulk. I say very briefly. It's the longest fight in this whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny because he fights the Hulk and then immediately goes on to fighting the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
So I think this may be the first Ditko fight we've covered.
It possibly is
on Friday Night Fight, and I don't cover Ditko fights as much because. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I can already hear YouTube. The YouTube chat's salty tonight. I'm gonna get hit for something on this, no matter what I say. The lead Ditko Spider-Man, while I like it and I enjoy it and I appreciate its place, for me, Spider-Man really didn't hit its stride until Lee Romita. And don't get me wrong, I'm not poo-pooing that. I liked Steve Ditko's artwork much better for esoteric things or weird things like Doctor Strange. But with a character like Spider-Man, who's as agile and as strong as he is, it didn't always play out in the artwork. I don't really think, and that's probably unpopular, and I'm about to get hate.
Actually, I've heard that quite often, George. You're not the only one that believes it. It seemed like that Spider-Man grew up more when Ditko left the book.
Yeah, and it's nothing against Ditko, and you can't look at the success that Spider-Man had and say that and say that it wasn't as successful as it was, partly because of Ditko. It was.
Yeah, it was.
But at the same time, it's just when you talk about eras of Spider-Man history, this pales to what comes after it, in my opinion. When you had the Romita art and.
I think they're both really, really strong.
The problem is that when it comes to the way the fights look visually,
Yeah, I'll give you Romita draws a better fight.
Yeah,
it's more mainstream.
It's why we don't really talk about a lot of the Ditko fights or any of them on Friday Night Fights, is because a lot of times they're just weird, and they're not always as, because like, think about it, Brad, a lot of times, think back to any time we're covering something with like Sal Buscema.
He knocks the dude out.
We talk about the power in the art. We talk about, just like when Ditko draws somebody getting hit, it's like getting hit and then there's like a little star or something on somebody's shin and somebody goes like this.
It's more realistic with Ditko when his art is also kind of non-realistic. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, Ditko drew a crime noir comic book and had a superhero in it. That was his Spider-Man, and that was the strength. So the fights were more like fights you would see on television in the 60s. Guys throwing punches and stuff. Whereas when you get in with somebody like Romita, or you mentioned Sal Buscema, who I just think he draws like somebody like pointing out traffic, and it looks like it's powerful. Yeah, it's just, and it's nothing, and it's nothing against Ditko, because George mentioned Doctor Strange. Ditko had a skill set. Yeah. He was really good at it.
Yeah.
But if you're talking dynamic fights, and if you're talking, I really hate Ditko's Hulk. I mean, I'm just not a fan of it, and I know he drew the character for a really long time.
And Tales to Astonish, and
actually, we're like 3 months after this issue is when Hulk got his own strip in Tales to Astonish. So we're still in kind of the interstitial period. But I never liked those Hulks, because the Hulk it's basically like watching, and this is nothing against Lou, it's basically like watching Lou Ferrigno fight the Thor on The Return of the Incredible Hulk, and then go and watch their fight in Avengers. It's just two completely different things, just because of the special effects of the time. Yes, I will put you down.
Yeah, it's two different flavors, is what it is.
And it's I get what Mike is saying about the artwork and the way, and some of the people in chat are echoing this. The way that Ditko drew faces. Romita came from romantic comics, from romance comics.
Mm-hmm.
And so his people just looked, they could convey motion a lot better. Hulk here, because Ditko or Bailey seized on Hulk. There's points in here where Hulk looks like Elvis and Lurch from the Addams Family had a child, produced an offspring.
What in the? Oh yeah, look at this panel. I that one right there.
It looks exactly like Elvis and Lurch had a kid.
There's irony in your statement there, because who the voice of the Hulk was for the first two seasons.
Was it Ted Cassidy?
It was Ted Cassidy.
Was it really? Lurch?
Yeah, and then he died.
Wow.
He died in 1979, and then Charles Napier from First Blood Part 2 and all that, he took over as the voice of the Hulk.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Ted Cassidy did the opening narration to the Hulk show.
Huh. I guess I just never
which just celebrated its 40th anniversary, Mr. Bailey.
40th anniversary.
Isn't that crazy with that pilot?
Still one of the best TV pilots of all time.
Yes. Yeah.
Holds up to this day.
The Hulk,
by the way,
Hulk series was much better than the Spider-Man series.
The what?
I said when we look at like 70s TV, Superman. Or not Superman, but Hulk. Stop distracting me, Zach. Put the damn thing down. Thank you. And so when it came to series, Wonder Woman had a robust series. Batman had a robust series in the 60s. Hulk had a very robust series. In the late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah. 1977 and 1982.
Yeah. And Spider-Man had what Spider-Man had.
And they kept moving him, and they only filmed a certain number of episodes. I mean, it's CBS.
They didn't want to be the superhero network.
Yeah, pretty much. And like the CW's like, F you, that's all we're going to do.
Ironically enough, half owned by CBS.
Yeah. What was I was going to say something. Oh, Lou Ferrigno voiced the Hulk, is what I understand, in the first Avengers movie. And I swear in the new Thor movie that is what's the actor's name? That's Banner.
Ruffalo?
Mark Ruffalo said puny god. That is Mark Ruffalo's voice.
Well,
first Avengers film.
Ferrigno has been saying that was him.
No, listen to that. That sounds like Ruffalo.
That's you can
honestly, I think Ferrigno actually did this. Yeah, the voice of the Hulk in this in the Thor movie. Actually,
no,
I looked online.
It sounds like Ruffalo in the Thor movie. It sounds like
he might have done the growls because he did the voice of the Hulk on the '96 animated series.
Yeah,
yeah. I have a story with that when we're not on.
Here, George, we're digressing. Let's get to the fight. We've got several fights. We want to start with the first Goblin.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Well, I mean, who is this fight against?
What?
Is this a Spidey versus Hulk fight? Is it a Spidey versus Green Goblin fight, or is it a Spidey versus Enforcers fight? Because in this issue, he fights a lot of different people. Or is this a Spidey versus this issue fight?
I say it's Spidey this issue fight.
Okay, so the title is going to be Spider-Man versus Amazing Spider-Man number 14. That'll draw people in. All right. So yeah, so basically,
Volume 1.
Basically, Peter gets sent to Hollywood for the first time.
Yeah.
After promising Aunt May that he'll dress warm because in Los Angeles you want to dress warm. He even says that. I promise. That he says the Beagle sending him out there. She's talking about how fragile he is. Look, I promise I'll wear warm. I'll wear a sweater, dude. You're going to L.A. No one wears sweaters there. They're in shorts and Christmas. What are you talking about?
That panel where he's talking to Aunt May, though, she looks like she gives 0 Fs for anything he's saying.
Yeah. Well, she has, back then, this is the halcyon days of the late 60s, or pardon me, the early 60s. And, we didn't have all these, sexual harassment scandals breaking every half hour the way we do now. So back then, Hollywood was a more wholesome place. Back then, where you still had stars that were popular that had served in World War II. I mean, that were you had Hollywood.
And the sexual harassment was accepted. Damn it.
Yeah. Back when you could take a grope and not take it personal.
Oh, Jesus Christ! We are not. This is not going to go.
That is not.
I am not condoning that. I'm just saying.
No. We're saying that on the fly. We're not saying no. Stop. I do know somebody.
The social justice warriors are going to come out in the woodwork right now.
Somebody will take that out of context and bitch, but no. I mean, we're making fun of that. So stop.
So we go out to Hollywood with the Enforcers.
Anyway,
look at Aunt May in that panel. She's
I know. Look at
about
May.
all that. She's thinking about all the mescaline she's going to take when Peter's gone.
Here, let me hold that. There, Aunt May, I don't care, whatever. Just go out to Hollywood. We don't care.
What we didn't know is that when she went away for the weekend, or when Peter went away for
when Aunt May went out on the weekend,
that Aunt May had she had like a kind of a quick fling with Willie Lumpkin.
He delivered the mail. Yeah,
he drove upstate, spent a weekend up in the Catskills, showing off Willie skills.
Oh anyway. No.
And
they're gonna go see Bobby Sherman at the It's gonna be great. You don't understand.
So this is back in the era when the Green Goblin. Well, this is the first time Green Goblin showed up, and he's got instead of the glider. Another thing that we can. I don't know, when did the glider first come in? It didn't come in until Romita, did it?
No, it was there.
Did it? Did it come through the glider, JR?
When did the glider come in?
I think the glider came in issue number 17.
Mm-hmm.
The next time the Goblin appeared. In fact, I think the Goblin made the point of saying, "Let's see here."
It's more agile, right?
He does reference it, I think.
Yeah, but the glider does appear in issue number 17,
and it was more agile, right?
I don't know. You've got me at a disadvantage here.
JR, when you ride a broom, is it agile?
Well, actually, if you want to, if you want to talk to an expert about riding brooms, I'll call my wife down.
I knew it was coming.
A dude just can't be sinister riding around on a broom.
No, yeah.
I mean, think back to Harry Potter, right? I mean, like Voldemort was never on a broom.
Yeah, Voldemort didn't need such peasant things.
So yeah, I can, you can see why they make the change, because the broom is just that's not the way to go.
Real quick, JR, has there ever been any memorabilia of the Goblin on a broom?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Was that more to do like a Wicked Witch of the West type?
Maybe
riff with them to have him on the broom? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, here's the thing. Stan's idea of the Green Goblin was originally a spirit released from an Egyptian sarcophagus.
Surprised that's not what happened in Ultimate Marvel.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, we got the Hulk in Ultimate Marvel.
The Hulk Goblin.
Yeah.
But Ditko was always, obviously a little more grounded, and he said, nah, this is stupid. So probably by creating the Goblin or whatever, he just picked another Halloween reference and said, well, he'll fly on a broom. But and then it's like anything else. I mean, these characters evolved over time. I mean, it's the Terrible Tinkerer was originally an alien, and then Steve and Stan said, no, we don't want to go in the direction of aliens, and so it's I don't think much of it. It's just a little curio of a time gone by.
Well, the whole character is based in Halloween crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like goblins,
pumpkins,
spooks. Like he throws out. Some of the weapons he throws out. Some of them are like frogs. Some of them are bats.
The Sonic Toad.
Some of them look like ghosts. Actually, and of course the pumpkin bomb. So of course,
pumpkin bomb. You can't go wrong with a pumpkin bomb.
What the hell?
What's that from?
Have you guys never heard the BBC Audio Spider-Man series?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'll fix this for you.
I just like that you kind of quasi. Yes, we see it, Zach. Okay,
you just stumped the whole Spider panel with the BBC stuff.
I just like that you kind of almost went into a rap there, almost like a quasi.
I thought he was rapping on the fly.
It was like a proto rap.
I thought I thought that Bubba Moose was going to jump out any second right now.
No, there's a producer for the BBC named Dirk Maggs who in the late 80s and early 90s did a bunch of DC audio dramas. He did a Superman special, a Batman special, then he did a full-on Superman show. Then he adapted both The Death of Superman and Nightfall. And those got released over here. And in 95, he did Spider-Man. The Fantastic Four were involved. And he basically adapted like the first 15, 20 or so issues of Amazing Spider-Man over like 20 episodes. And he does some really weird things with the origin. One, Peter lives in Brooklyn, and the burglar actually takes Uncle Ben hostage and wastes him in front of everybody.
Oh no!
In front of May and Peter?
Yeah, in front of Peter and May and the cops and everybody.
And the cops?
Yeah.
He just.
But
okay.
And
well, that got dark.
The Green Goblin shows up, and when he throws out. No, this is later in the thing.
Okay.
He has a pumpkin bomb, and it talks. So when he throws it out, it goes, pumpkin bomb, you can't go wrong with a pumpkin bomb. It's haunting. It really is.
JR, you got to hear this.
I'm surprised that Defoe didn't sing that in the first Spider-Man movie. He just did the Itsy Bitsy Spider or whatever, right?
Itsy Spider. What
was it? There was a strange life form that went behind Zach. In fact, there's something. It's like a big. Are you sure there's like a little monster in your room, Zach?
Hornacek says that BBC show is still better than Turn Off the Dark.
He's not wrong. I just make that clear.
Wow.
The and just because we've been talking about audio stuff, Bailey, I don't know if you've ever heard it or not. Brad, I don't think we've ever talked about it. In the 70s, there was an attempt to make not an attempt. They actually did like a series of Fantastic Four things to be played on the radio, and Bill Murray was the Human Torch.
Bill Murray, yeah. They did a pretty faithful adaptation of like the first 10 issues.
They were good. I mean, they're enjoyable to listen to. Yeah.
You can find those on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, can you?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I found them like, oh God, remember back in the days of like Kazaa?
Yeah.
You know, like I found them on that, I think, way back in the day.
You know, Bailey, you'll remember this. Remember the Power Records Spider-Man with the Dragoon?
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
yeah.
what was his name? Dragoon?
I forget.
Drax. Was it Drax?
Yeah, I remember that. And I also remember the Hulk ones where the Hulk sounded like he was doing a bad American Indian impersonation.
Oh, smash!
Yeah, you're not off by much.
All right. Meanwhile, back in the issue,
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
back in the dynamic Steve Ditko issue that we keep deviating from. So Spider-Man shows up in Hollywood ostensibly to be in a motion picture, and the entire thing has been set up by the Green Goblin. The enforcers who are in the scene show up, and it's funny because like the Green Goblin is basically the director.
Yeah.
and no one ever questions that. It's just like, oh, you're the director? Well, I guess I'm in Hollywood. You know, I guess this is just par for the course.
And the more things change, the more things stay the same.
You know, Norman never went back to directing, did he, JR?
No, but when John Byrne redid things in Chapter 1, he had Norman own a movie studio, which is sort of how he tried to make this rather absurd little story actually make some sense.
Yeah.
Is that Norman
The
owned
least
a
egregious thing he did in that series.
yeah. Which actually, I didn't have a problem with. I thought that was rather clever. I always thought Norman was kind of a nerd, really, growing up himself. But he made references to wanting to be a science fiction writer at one time, and I always figured that, to me, it made perfect sense. I mean, where would he come up with a Green Goblin costume, and where would he come up with all the toys? Well, he had special effects people work on them.
So you're saying that
come up with them.
You're saying that Norman could have diverged from the point where he became the Green Goblin and instead gone on to become L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh no!
Actually, considering the cult of the Goblin, yes, very much so.
Yeah, I would totally see that. I mean, he is that egotistical that he would create his own religion.
Mm-hmm.
Now I kind of want to see that.
And then Tom Cruise
became president, right, during Earth X. So
So the enforcers jump Spidey when the camera's rolling, and Ox hits Spider-Man from behind, and then Spider-Man rolls with the punch, and he says, hey, if you do that again, I'll forget this is a movie. He must be nuts to swing so hard. Wait, why are my spider senses tingling this way? And I'm like, maybe because you just got hit from behind, jackass. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, look at this.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe it's because somebody just sucker punched you. So he winds up fighting the enforcers, and as agile as he would later become, it just hadn't kicked in at this point. Because he's able to get away from Fancy Dan's lasso, but while he does that, he gets hit by Ox again. Ox apparently in his early days, Ox was apparently the equivalent of Stegron's tail. Something that Spider-Man had absolutely no answer for, couldn't contend with. Was going to hit him 10 times out of 10. And so the enforcers go after him. Spider-Man's managing basically just to get away.
Yeah.
But with all of them jumping him at once, this is before Spider-Man had learned to, be able to use his opponents against one another, as he would later on. And so here, three guys trying to get him at once, aided by the director.
Yeah, what happened to his spider sense is what Sex says.
Well, he mentions it. Here's the thing. I think Ditko drew the story and just forgot about it. And then Lee was like, dude, you how did this guy hit Spider-Man from behind? He's got spider sense. And then Ditko's probably like, oh, shit. My bad, dog. And then Spider-Man's like, okay. Well, and Stan's like, screw it all, got it. Here, he references it here. It's fine now. Just move.
He was too busy reading Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
And it changed his life forever. A is A.
Oh, God.
Black is black. White is white.
Okay. And so Spider-Man I don't, dude. Having Zex on, it's like a minefield. You're trying to keep a coherent thought. He loses track, gets bored and whatever, and starts pulling out figures and puppets and going nuts, or he starts going through wardrobe stuff, or he'll just if I can't count the number of times we've been derailed just by Zach getting bored. So Spider-Man is jumped by 4 people now, the Enforcers and the Green Goblin. Fancy Dan manages to wrangle him up with the rope, but he breaks free of the rope. He actually breaks Fancy Dan's rope. At that point, Fancy Dan is just Fancy Dan without a rope.
He's been deemed powerless by the
He's not so fancy without his rope. He's just Dan.
Which means he's just a dude who has a rope and then doesn't have a rope anymore. So what's he gonna do? Aside from that, his
what kind of existential ennui are you going for here?
His secondary power is dude in a suit.
What you gonna do, brother?
You know. And then this is the point where Fancy Dan, who's now rendered impotent by the loss of his rope, goes, "Dance off, bro, me and you." I mean, that's all he has left. That's all he has in a bag of tricks, right? But then, don't worry, Fancy Dan. Ox jumps on Spider-Man and starts kicking the crap out of him again because Spider-Man has no answer to Ox. Although finally he is able to knock all of them off of him. And then you know, try to he knocks him over, says the party's over. And then because I think the Green Goblin had dumped off a pumpkin bomb. Where did the smoke come from?
Well, they're in the desert. I think they just
it's just the dust. Okay, so yeah, dust cloud comes in suddenly there, you know, Spider-Man's able to get away.
Yeah. And
so that's that fight. And so later on, back in their cave lair, you know, you've got the Green Goblin going through a series of catacombs. There's a really cool story. I'm gonna divert here for a minute. From back in oh God, like the 30s or 40s, there was some guy. LA Times ran this story. There was a guy named E. Walter Schufelt who claimed that there was a vast underground city underneath Los Angeles, and that it was filled with artifacts and perhaps living members still of a tribe of Native Americans that worship snakes. And he claimed to have discovered chambers using seismographic instruments and also that these chambers were filled with gold. You know, never mind the fact that seismograph readings aren't going to say, "Hey, there's a big pile of gold in here." and
city of gold.
And it wasn't until I think like they built the Santa Monica Expressway or whatever that they found out, oh yeah, there's nothing underneath here. It turns out this guy was just full of shit the whole time. But since they're in Hollywood, it made me, and yeah, exactly. It made me think about this guy in his story. Anyway, so they're they're in a cave. They roll a boulder in front of the cave entrance, and they think, oh, it's safe in here. It's dark, you know. We're safe in here. We've managed to escape, and then the Green Goblin says, "Don't be a fool. The 4 of us can handle a dozen Spider-Man." and I'm like,
foreshadowing.
One of them just kind of, you know, you couldn't capture one of them. What makes you think you could handle 6 of them, or let alone a dozen of them? And so one by one, Spidey starts taking these guys off inside the cave. Of course, he takes out. Oh God,
it's not Fancy Dan. Is it the Crime Master?
No, not the Crime Master.
What's the guy with the lasso in that panel?
No, the guy with the lasso is
Montana.
Wait, no, that's Montana.
Montana.
I was confusing Montana and Fancy Dan earlier.
Okay.
Which makes my Fancy Dan jokes now not as funny.
It's all
because
good.
I was coming from a place of ignorance. I always forget that Montana's. I always forget Montana's an actual member. I always remember Ox and Fancy Dan. Montana just doesn't stick out. Yeah. It's a state.
He's the one with the cowboy hat, son, and becomes a shocker on Spectacular Spider-Man.
So they fight to this cave. Spider-Man finally manages to hit Ox, who has a glass jaw.
Yeah.
Despite being a guy named Ox, Spider-Man jumps down on a rock he's holding and just hits him one time, and this guy's out. And oh, hey, then surprise, shock, the Hulk shows up.
I like that panel. He just comes out of the smoke. He's been hiding in a cave.
It It's random though. That's the problem with it.
It's one of the most random things that's ever happened in Spidey. It's like Spidey and Electro fighting, and then suddenly suddenly a werewolf's there.
Werewolf by Night shows up.
You know what?
Listen to Spider-Man's. He's like, "Holy Hannah! Of all the caves to pick for a fight, we had to pick the one the Hulk was hiding in."
Yeah, it's just it's somewhat of left field.
I loved it.
You know what's funny? It seems like you could just visualize Stan jumping on his couch, and he's sitting there with Steve, and he's like, and then suddenly the Hulk shows up, and Steve's like, what?
Yeah, it's like they just wanted an excuse to be able to throw Hulk in the cover somehow, because it's almost like they went back and redrew pages, because you could tell that the original artwork didn't have the Hulk anywhere on the cover. And they just kind of added it on as an afterthought, and they were like, you know what, screw it, let's have the Hulk show up. Okay, what about
draw a little box on the right hand side, Ditko?
Why is he in the story? Screw it, he was in the cave, he just happened to be there. Okay, even back in like the early '60s, they were willing to say, "F it, it's comics." You know,
that's funny.
So the Hulk comes out of the darkness of the cave, through the dust, you know, kicked up from the fight, and of course the Green Goblin's throwing bombs everywhere around on his, you know, manly broomstick. And so Green Goblin's watching, thinking, "Oh, this is great. Hulk's going to do my work for me, because, you know, nothing that lives can match the Hulk's strength." Right. Of course, Hulk at this time is having problem, you know, landing any kind of hits on Spider-Man whatsoever. And this is one time when Ditko does manage to get Spider-Man's agility right. You know, he jumps up. You know, Hulk tries to hit him. He jumps out of the way, crawls up on a what looks to be some sort of stalagmite or stalactite, whatever it is, goes from the top to the bottom. So I don't think it's either.
Stalactite goes from the ground up. Stalag has a G, ground. Stalac has a C, ceiling.
Yeah, I won't remember that later.
Woo!
There's no way. They should have
called it. I just gave you a key.
I won't remember it later. I'm just telling you.
There'll be a quiz.
Well, Professor Bailey shows up for a random cameo, educating us on different things.
So Spider-Man, you know, tries a series of different wrestling moves, because that's a lot of time, you know, when superhero fights came down to melee, a lot of times you tried to grapple somebody. Again, I'm doing the Kirby thing, you know, and Spider-Man finally hits him. Spider-Man finally manages to hit Hulk right in the face. It's a nice hit too, and of course, as we just saw last month, funny how I still remember this 30 days later. Spider-Man's holding his hand because he hurt his hand hitting the Hulk. So
that's a good Ditko punch. Look at that punch.
No, that was very good.
That's a great looking punch on the Hulk.
That's very powerful.
Yeah. Now
in the Romita panel, in a Romita drawn book, this is every other panel. You know, it's the power of the punch. Or in Sabu Simas, this looks like somebody getting coffee.
I just like that.
I mean, that's how dynamic and powerful.
In the first appearance of their fight, where is it? Where he just says, I think I moved this panel here, where he's like, "All right, Hulk, I've had enough. Here we go. I'm going to throw one." I just like that sequence.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the Hulk doesn't like getting punched. We finally remember Spider-Man's spider sense. And so Ditko clearly shows it going off, and this time it allows him to get hit by the Hulk, but it gives him enough time to pull back, so he's kind of rolling with the punch, and so it's more of a glancing blow, but it's still a glancing blow from the damn Hulk.
Yeah.
You know, and so he staggered for a minute. The Hulk tries to smash him, but he winds up smashing some rocks, and Spider-Man jumps out of the way. And of course, right after he dodges out of the Hulk, he instantly comes upon the Green Goblin and starts fighting him.
Yeah.
And it's a real brief, just in 6 panels, you know, he just has Spider-Man kind of swing up, grab the broomstick while the Goblin's trying to maneuver, and then Spider-Man falls down into like a watery I don't know, what is that, a grotto or some sort of underground aquifer that runs back out to the outside.
Yeah.
The Ogallala Aquifer.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
And then Spidey, watches Hulk leave the cave, and he rounds up the enforcers, takes them back just in time, I guess, for a police chopper to show up. Or
I
don't know.
guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's an army helicopter. That's
Yeah.
right. It's an army helicopter. And so the end. This is one of the weirdest damn Ditko issues there ever was.
I love it though.
But you got to say that he got to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
So George, let's the Green Goblin fight. Who won that one?
Well, there wasn't really a fight. I mean, the Green Goblin stayed out of range the entire time, just throwing bombs, riding around on his crotch rocket.
Right. And he escaped.
Yeah, I mean, he escaped, but the whole point for him was killing Spider-Man in an ambush, and that didn't. So in that sense, he failed.
Okay.
But of course, he didn't go to jail. He gets away. If you're the enforcers, clearly you lost.
Yeah.
Spider-Man
lost the Hulk battle.
I don't know. I don't know because Hulk, he hit Hulk once, Hulk hit him once, and then they just kind of went their separate ways. It really seems more like a draw, although he was definitely trying to get away from Hulk when that happened. The decision is that this fight was canceled due to Ditko. I mean, there's no clear winners, except the only clear losers are the enforcers. So if we want to say it was Spidey versus the enforcers, then yes, Spidey won.
Okay.
Spidey won hands down, and the other two are.
Let's go to the YouTuber comments. Who do you think won the Goblin and the Hulk fight? We'll wait a couple minutes so they can hear it on the delay. JR or Bailey or Zach, any thoughts of who won the Hulk Goblin fight?
Obviously the Hulk, because Hulk always wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's such a mishmash because, the Hulk didn't fight the enforcers. I mean, the fight is versus Amazing Spider-Man number 14. So
he was fighting that issue, wasn't he?
He was fighting the fever dream of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko trying to draw this fever dream, and well, it didn't necessarily work out.
Bailey, do you like this issue?
Yeah, but only I don't really like it as a Spider-Man story.
What do you like it
as? Well, keep in mind, when I think of the Marvel Universe, it's usually from the perspective of either Captain America or the Hulk. So to me, this is one of the interstitial Hulk stories from after his series ended, but before he was in Tales to Astonish. He bounced around. He was in the Avengers, and then he was in Fantastic Four, and then he was in this. And I like that Stan didn't give up on the idea.
Sorry.
What's a fat one?
Well done.
Ancient reference.
Yeah, I like to do the deep cuts, but
that's a deep cut, sir.
That was a this day in history cut.
Yeah. As a Spider-Man story, it's important because it's the first appearance of the Green Goblin. But like most Stan ideas from the 60s, it isn't what it was in the beginning. It's what it eventually became, that the Green Goblin's a special character. I mean, if he had never appeared again, this would be a forgotten, just like weird menace that Spider-Man fought, but they developed him further. I don't think it's a good first appearance, but I don't think it's terrible either. So, the Spider-Man as a Marvel comic from the 60s is one of the most consistently good series that was coming out. Like the Fantastic Four really took about 20 or 30 issues to get good. They were weird and there was interesting things going on, but it seemed like Spider-Man was more fully baked coming when he was coming out. So not high, but
according to Marvel the Untold Story, there was a lot of people that were baked.
Yeah, there was.
But
go ahead, Mike.
But I just this isn't my favorite early issue of Spider-Man.
Let's have JR's rebuttal about it. Was this a good first appearance of the Goblin? I don't think you're going to disagree.
It was pretty effing stupid. In fact, it was probably the stupidest Goblin story until the final chapter in The Gathering of the Five.
And now we know why JR didn't take the episode over.
What issue did you fall in love with the Goblin, JR? It wasn't the first appearance? Was it the unmasking?
Well, first of all, when you say fall in love, you make that I get very uncomfortable with that because that's not exactly intimacy. That's not exactly how I pictured it, particularly in this post Harvey Weinstein / Kevin Spacey / thing going on. Well, actually, not George, but Brad, we had a podcast episode about that. Actually, in fact, it was, so you're asking me this question, which was already answered in a podcast.
Look, I think you know what number where you did.
It was annual. It was annual number 9.
You forget, JR, this is Brad. You could have lunch with Brad, and y'all could both go to Subway, and then later that night, Brad will ask what sandwich he had.
Yeah, let's be honest. Brad is Peggy Carter in Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Wow.
That's so sad. We only talk every other year, Bailey.
Brad's like, come back often, Bailey.
That's funny.
Yeah, but that's okay because you're gonna forget about this.
Oh man! Oh, the YouTubers are loving that.
I just
said, holy crap, Bailey!
I just went for a little sting. Bailey moved in for the fatality.
The jugular, stepping in the jugular. Yeah.
Oh well, here it is. Actually.
All I heard was a crotch stomping by Bailey. What the hell happened?
We actually talked about this in podcast number 399.
Okay.
The November 2015 podcast, Brad, because we talked about Amazing Spider-Man 66 and the original Spectacular Spider-Man magazine number 2, which featured that story. But I picked up the reprint, annual number 9 at Bob King's barber shop. I traded him a couple of old Batmans for it, and that began my lifelong passion for the Goblin.
So Spec Magazine 2 is you sealed the deal.
That was it. That sealed the deal. Yes.
It's such an amazing story too. That was a fantastic Goblin story.
Yeah.
And if you want to see that really well done in animation, the episode Turning Point in the 90s show absolutely crushed adapting that particular issue in that episode.
It's funny that you mentioned adaptation because this is loosely adapted on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, this issue, where Spidey goes to Hollywood.
Amazing Friends.
Yeah, but nobody considers Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends a good TV show.
Actually, that one episode is the one that I will go back to again and again because
yeah, I love that one.
When I was a kid, it had the Hulk in it, so I was going to watch it.
See, Bailey and I were
when I think of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, I think of that really stupid living arrangement in Aunt May's house, where she doesn't question why she's got her own version of Three's Company going on in her house, with Spidey, Iceman, and what's her name, Firestar going on there.
Oh, I've never heard anybody call Amazing Friends Three's Company. What?
It is. It is totally Three's Company.
Exactly.
It's Three's Company with a dog.
Yeah.
And Mr. Roper is Aunt May.
I seriously want Bobby Drake to bust in. It's like, we got to go to the Regal Beagle right now.
Well, actually, Hornacek just wrote, and then Brad fired JR.
Yeah, but he's been firing me for the last 12 years, and he keeps rehiring me.
Kalish just wrote, man, I really enjoyed JR's last show.
Well, you see, the thing is JR is not wrong.
Wait a minute.
No. That show on an objective level is terrible.
No.
No. Yes.
No.
It is awful.
Yes.
No.
The episode where they're visited by the girl from the future, and Peter falls in love with her, and when she goes back, he decides, you know what? I'm just going to abandon Aunt May. I'm going to abandon my whole responsibility gig. Just to hightail it with this, and get this tale from the future.
Future tale.
Yeah.
Exactly.
On top of that, you have an Australian Wolverine. You have Angelica being known as Miss Angelica Jinx.
I know.
I love that show.
But yeah, we love it because it was part of our childhood.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like if all you get to eat is McDonald's, you're going to accept it because it's all you have to eat. But at the time,
you're probably going to die of a bunch of different diseases.
Yeah, well,
the amount of preservatives in your body.
That's true. But my point is that in the late 70s and the early 80s,
you were just happy to have something.
Yeah, we were just happy to have something. It's just like these kids today with their hula hoops and their Dan Fogelberg records don't understand. That's a basketball reference for everybody.
You kids today with the Alan Parsons Project.
You kids today with your Avengers and your Ultimate Spider-Man and
look. You can't turn on a channel right now and flip through like your cable package and not find something superhero related. Whereas we had the Hulk TV show, Adam West was in perpetual reruns, but as far as new material, it was few and far between. So yeah, we're gonna love it.
Back in the day when that cartoon came on, if they had just used the name and put it on some jackass replace character, we would have watched it thinking it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I would think that actually George would loathe Spider-Man and his amazing friends for the very reason that Tony Stark was their sugar daddy in that show. I mean, remember? I mean, it's
he's the one that gave them all their equipment.
Gave them all the toys. Yeah,
with the voice of
George. What do you think of that?
Voice of William Marshall.
Yeah, no, the
too much Dave Stark in the 80s.
I like it. I have nostalgia for the show. It wasn't perfect. It had some dog moments like Tony Stark. It had like or Video Man.
Yeah,
Video Man. Remember Video Man is like the nadir of cartoon storytelling. The fact that whoever brought that idea up and like the conceptual meaning when their story, they're
video games for ideas. That's why.
The fact that whoever did that probably wasn't frog marched out of the room.
What out of the room? Frog marched?
Marched.
What's a frog march?
It's like marched out like a frog.
That's where you basically stick a gun in somebody's back and they kind of like, hello, my baby, hello, my honey, out the
door. And then you hear a lone gunshot and you'll never have to hear about Video Man again. Oh, that's going to trigger somebody. We're going to get angry. We're going to get angry texts now or messages from.
But the episode with the Hulk, though, I remember watching that as a kid, and I rewatched it when it was on Netflix a couple years ago. And it's actually because of the Hulk being in it, it somehow elevates that episode. When it had other superheroes, the show was actually pretty cool. And that's where I was introduced to people like Captain America and Shayna the She-Devil.
Seven little superheroes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was the apex of that show. That and the X-Men episode.
Yeah.
Even though the X-Men episode was flawed. I mean, let's face it. But,
Roy!
Corky, here I am going to eat some shrimp on the bottom.
That was the first time I saw Wolverine, by the way. That episode. I'd not heard of Wolverine until that episode.
Apparently neither had the anime or had the voice director because they made him from, like as Zach said earlier, from Australia.
And they carried that over to the Pride of the X-Men.
Right, the pilot, yeah.
Cartoon Wolverine later went on to do ads.
So actually it was a forebearer of Hugh Jackman.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Wow, yeah.
Come full circle.
Foster's is just missing out on an opportunity of like Wolverine. Beer.
We brought you Wolverine. Beer.
Okay, you went from Australian to like Cockney in like one sentence there.
All right, I think we're probably done with this episode.
I think we're done with the episode too.
I don't know, man. People are going to be like, we want to hear you guys more about talking about cartoons from the 80s because you're all old.
Hey, watch it, Kimo Sabe.
Yeah, you're 30 now. Bite me, okay?
I think that's how we end the episode. I think that's good. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll do history.
Bailey, are you going to stick around for history?
No, I gotta get up early. But I will say this: you said happy birthday to Stan Lee. God, I hope he doesn't die before this episode.
Why would you say that?
Oh,
Why would you put that evil on him, Bailey?
Bailey.
Well, Bailey, you weren't the only one thinking it because Hornacek was the one that said it on the chat, and I was like,
oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, it was just like I'm not saying it to be funny. I'm just saying it because with the way celebrities drop like flies nowadays. It's no, but this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys having me on.
I like the Hornacek says the panel becomes very angry in 2018.
Becomes angry.
But
that's our secret. We're always angry.
Oh yeah.
If you guys do another Hulk thing, just let me know and I'll come on for that.
That's awesome.
We should do that. I've never read Peter Parker 14.
Oh,
so
really?
It's a good one.
It's great.
Oh, you need to read it.
Bailey, you've got Unlimited, don't you?
Yeah, I actually have it pulled up on Unlimited right now.
Yeah, you should read it.
Read it tonight or something. It's
the only Mackie story that was actually good from the Mackie Byrne reboot era.
And it's Romita Jr. drawing the Hulk.
Yeah.
it is gorgeous.
And God, it's like if he hadn't crapped all over Superman, I'd be a little more.
What is Romita Jr. doing now? He was on All-Star Batman.
He's doing the metal. He was doing All-Star, and I think he's doing like some of the metal things that I'm not paying attention to at all.
Well, here's the thing. Ever since Scott Hanna started inking his work recently, it's like I don't think that JR Jr. is doing as tight of pencils as he used to. And so Scott's not really enhancing the pencils all that much, in my opinion. And so it just doesn't look right. It looks too muddied. It doesn't look crisp and clean. When he was drawing him or inking him back during the JMS run, it was a lot cleaner lines.
Bailey, is that Mayday?
No, this is Gracie.
Gracie,
She
okay.
is Mayday's
Is
sister.
that the dog? One of the dogs that was in heat during an old podcast many years ago? Or was that one the product of that heat?
No.
That was one of the funniest things when your dogs went at it in the podcast. I'm still laughing.
And then your wife goes, "They're in heat," or "She's in heat."
She's in heat.
Yeah.
I was afeared Bailey was getting attacked by werewolves.
No, this is Gracie. She's Mayday's sister. We originally got her for Rachel's mom, but she really couldn't handle a puppy, and unfortunately, Rachel's mom passed away in 2014. So she's our now. This dog loves me, a lot actually.
What's not to love about you? A lot. When I do it, it sounds sexy. When you do it, it sounds like you're drowning.
Ooh, they're making out. They're making out. Look at this. They're making out.
You're on camera.
But by the way, Bailey, the deep cut on the what's a fat one. Well done.
I remember everything. I am the anti-Brad. So why do you guys have me on here? I do nothing but insult you.
It's all good.
That's why we have you on.
Actually, next time I'm not going to insult JR at all because JR, now that I've seen what JR looks like, it's more jovial. So,
in other words, you feel sorry for me enough that you don't want to add to it, right?
Hey, can't make fun of him anymore because of pity.
JR has the great memory. Alistair asks, he wants to know what episodes the dogs were in heat.
Well, let's see. I don't know. Let's see.
I don't remember. It was during one of the episodes of the Crawlspace reboot when Bailey came back.
It was probably around 2012, 2013.
Yeah,
Bailey didn't get that until 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Kalish says Bailey is so savage, it's amazing.
Bailey is savage.
He's savage.
Bailey is savage.
I come off as the nice guy, and then that's
Then you go for the jugular, yeah.
It's like Stella, Stella's like I'm the innocent one, but you walk by, it's like why does my side feel wet, and you realize she stabbed you.
Yeah. And
I never had that problem. She just stabbed me in the face every time she insulted me.
You have a stabbable face.
With or without the beer, Bailey.
Even I have never gone that far.
No, dude,
oh my gosh!
I'm gonna say this: you are rocking that beard. That's
Is that not the quote of the night? You have a stabbable face.
Of course, it's at my expense, which I expect nothing less from Bailey.
No, you are doing what every teacher in my junior high did when they started having kind of the thinning hairline. They immediately grew a beard.
Well, I immediately grew a beard because I went from being in a profession that I could not grow any facial hair whatsoever due to the fact that I was around poisonous H2S gas all the time. So,
Good grief. I mean, it wasn't the
they
dress
wouldn't
code
allow
at
you
the
to
male
grow
strip
facial
club you
hair.
worked at?
Yeah. Well,
Coming to the stage, the 12-inch Scarlet Spider.
It's the new take on Nathan's hot dogs. It's just male strip club.
By the way, Hornacek says Bailey can no longer say JR looks like Walter the Jeff Dunham puppet.
No, it's kind of sad because who I always imagined him to be like. So.
Oh my gosh, Hornacek just got the episode number. Episode number 285 was with Bailey's dogs growling for 3 minutes.
I expect nothing less from Hornacek.
I like that right now Bailey looks a little like the comics equivalent of Ernst Stavros Blofeld, but with a dog.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Well done. Well done.
Good time.
But guys, I gotta split. You guys have fun doing history, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on, Bailey. I know
Bailey.
we had approached you about doing this last summer, but things kind of got slowed down, and we weren't able to
things got crazy for me too, dude. It's back to school. It is now a thing for me again. So
we're
that and everything.
Mike, YouTubers, before we hang up, you'll probably get an email if you're a subscriber that we're live again. Also, just go to the YouTube channel and it'll instantly appear. Also, I'll put the link of the video up on our front page again when we're going. We're going to take about a 10-15 minute break, and we'll be back. Okay. All right.
All right, Mike. I'll talk to you soon. We're going to try to get that episode that we were talking about getting.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So
thanks for
coming. If I can find time.
I understand.
Good to share a show with you again, Mr. Bailey.
Yeah.
Always good to see you, JR.
I miss you, Bailey. I
miss you too, Bailey.
Yeah, I mean, you're the real Mike. I mean, we've had to put up with the fake one for like the last.
Yeah, but fake Mike's got like legit writing gigs and stuff like that, where I'm still working at fucking Staples.
Well, yeah, but I mean, is he still waiting to be paid for the first one? I think.
Really?
Yeah. I think he's making like he's maybe made $20 total. We'll have to ask him next time he's on though.
Wow, poor bastard. Okay, we will talk soon. All right,
hey, Bailey, tell Shag I said hi.
I will do so, sir.
All right, buddy.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye.
Connect you in 15 minutes. All right, bye.
All right, bye.